Hello, everyone, and welcome to this reflection of 50 Shards of Anomaly. No, sorry, Primeval, Series 1. All 6 episodes.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, that's the one. I'm with Louie, Benn, and Jack McCullough. So, we are here, 10 years ago, this series aired. So, Jack has now finally seen the series, so now we're going to give our thoughts on it. So let's start where it started with episode 1. I think I'll let Jack start because he's newest to this show. So Jack, what do you think of episode 1 of series 1?
Fucking crap! No, joking. Episode 1. It's strange they don't have titles, but yeah, episode 1 of series 1. I think this is a really good introduction to the series. I mean, we're introduced into the show where we see this woman being chased through
Asda.
Asda, this supermarket, and it turns out it's Helen Cutter, and then you cut to 8 years later, and we're introduced
Sorry to interrupt you. It's just you almost expect her to turn around to the creature and slap her ass and go, "It's Asda price."
Dun, dun.
Oh god, should have gone to Specsavers. Every little helps. Yeah, no.
That's flipping Tesco.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, it's like, yeah, and then it cuts 8 years later, and we're introduced to Professor Nick Cutter, and I think Douglas Henshall is Professor Nick Cutter. He's probably my favorite character in the show. He's just, he's just really funny. Like, he's
because
really
he's
sarcastic.
fucking Scottish.
Yeah. It's like anomalies through time, and I mean, he'd be really just, sarcastic sometimes, and you're introduced to Stephen as well, and Connor, who's sort of this, geeky kind of nerdy guy, and he's interesting. Like, we see Nick Cutter, like his office and all that, and he's like, got all of these like fossils and stuff, and he's basically still wondering what's happened to Helen, like 8 years later. Like, he still doesn't believe that she's dead. Like, he still thinks like she may be alive out there somehow. And I think the cast for the show are really good. Like I said, Douglas Henshall as Nick Cutter is great, Professor Nick Cutter, and you got Andrew Lee Potts as who I really like as well, and
He's actually been rumored for the 13th Doctor.
Andrew Lee Potts.
Yep.
I mean, I like him, but I don't know if he could be the next Doctor. But anyway,
everybody's being rumored to the next Doctor. There's no
to be fair, though, I would rather Andrew Lee Potts than Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Yeah, well, obviously, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I love the setup for the series in this first episode. Like, we see basically that there's an anomaly that opens in the Forest of Dean, and we're introduced to the Gorgonox pod.
Shards of glass that haunt me from my past.
Don't fucking. No, but I mean, I think the anomaly is really cool. Like the look of it, it's basically like, like you said, it's like broken bits of glass, like hovering around in this sort of. It's really cool looking. I mean, I think the CGI of the Gorgonox pod is really good. Like, we're introduced to that, and you have this like little kid who goes into the forest, and you see Abby as well. She's like working at the zoo, and she's into lizards and stuff, and I think Abby, Hannah Spirit, like like, I mean, she's attractive, and Abby is a good character. Like, she's basically sacked, and then she has to go and get the Gorgonox. She has to find this lizard, and Rex or whatever comes through the anomaly, and I think.
Sorry, I've just remembered something. You said she's sacked. Then I just watched episode 6 the other day, yesterday, and she's wearing her work clothes again. Does she get?
I think that's because in the episode they say we can re-put you. Like, she's fired from the reptile house, but they say we can move you on to a different area in the zoo.
Oh, all right. Sorry, I must have.
They say something about like that we're doing a thing on elephant dung, and she's like, "Can't wait."
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the way they set up the characters is great, and I think the CGI for the Gorgonox pod is really good. Like this big saber tooth.
Oh,
Uh,
some microphone. Ouch.
it was Louie, bro. But yeah, the Gorgonox pod's really cool. Like the look of it, like the saber tooth T-Rex thing is really cool, and you know, and the only CGI I'd say is a bit dated is the CGI for Rex. Like we see Abby goes to like, she's basically told there's this lizard and the kid has it, and it turns out it's this prehistoric kind of dinosaur lizard thing. And I think the CGI for Rex hasn't dated that well, but I mean the CGI for the Gorgonox pod's good. Um, I think like the other characters like Ben Miller as Lester, he's just he's great. Like he's just such a sarcastic dick. Like you know, just like well, you know, he's just like Ben Miller's just great as Lester, and you got Lucy Brown as Claudia, and she's great as well. Like I mean, and she's attractive. Like and you know, we could see you know when they bring in Nick Cutter that they start to have a they start to have a bond. Like he's like, oh, you've grown attached. I think she says in like Ben Miller says in episode 1 or 2, oh, you've grown attached to him. She's like, I trust him if that's what you mean. And like it's kind of interesting how she's introduced. Like she's in the bar and then she goes over to him and kisses him. And she's like, oh yeah, I've just told him you're my boyfriend. And I mean, I like the mystery surrounding Helen Cutter. Like Nick's been, it's been 8 years since she's disappeared, and he still believes she's out there. And he's trying to see, what's going on. And it's cool when they go to the Forest of Dean and it's already been attacked. And I love that scene where Abby and the kid are in the forest, and then the dinosaur is stalking them. The kid runs back home, and the dinosaur like attacks his home, and the dinosaur head is inside the kid's house, and it's
Yeah.
smashing up everything. And
I don't know if you realize, I don't know whether this was intentional, but I take this as a reference to the Lost World. They're like, Mum, there's a dinosaur. There's a dinosaur here. Like, and then it's the same thing in the school, and they're like, there's a dinosaur in the window. It reminded me of the scene in Lost World when they're like, Mommy, there's a dinosaur in the backyard.
yeah, well, let's not be reminded of that crap. No, but I mean that seems cool. Like when it's trying to get in through the window, and then it leaves, and then it's
The
like
CGI is great for that.
yeah, it actually
I think,
surprisingly.
although I will have to say it's a bit unbelievable that the mum's just downstairs whilst this thing smashes up the house, and it's just like,
Yeah, I mean, I didn't understand that. Surely you would have heard that.
and she just comes up and goes, Ben, turn the telly off, and then she's like blames it on Abby, like putting that
Yeah.
nonsense into his head. So it's like,
I'm
okay,
playing the telly.
a little 8-year-old boy just starts smashing up the window, and
Yeah.
from the outside, like, stupid bitch.
Like seeing everything destroyed, surely she'd be like, "What the fuck?"
No, she's just like, Ben,
Turn the telly down.
I hate
If
that.
she really thought he did that, wouldn't she put him like in a mental asylum or something?
It would be good if they had a line like, I've just turned my hearing aid on, or something, like she's deaf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my headcanon,
No, but
she's deaf.
Yeah.
That's why she.
No, but I mean and that scene is quite cool as well when the kid discovers the anomaly and he goes through it briefly, and he comes back, and then we see Abby later. She like meets up with him, and like basically Ben Miller's character and Nick Cutter basically tell her to lie, to like say like, oh, there's nothing, like maybe you've seen something. And you kind of feel sorry for the kid, because this kid has been he nearly died, and yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, it's just in your imagination. I mean, I think for 45 minutes the episode, it's really well paced. Like all the characters introduced really, they introduce all the characters and set up their backstories well. Like, we got Connor, who's a sort of geek. We got Abby, who works in a zoo. We got Stephen, who's just kind of he's a bit sarcastic and a bit of a pretty boy. And you got Nick Cutter, who's still looking for Helen. I mean, I think the way they set up all the characters is really good. And then when they go and find the anomaly, that's great. And the finale of the episode where they go in the anomaly, and and we see like they arrive on the other side and they find Helen Cutter, like the camera, and like Nick's like, "Oh, I'm staying behind." He's like, "Give me 1 hour," and then he decides to go back anyway, and then you have the Gorgonox pod, like you have that scene where the kids is in school and then it attacks the school, and we see like Stephen has to go after it and Stephen has to lure it away, and then at the end when it comes back and then he like rams it, like kills it with this like they shoot it and then he like rams a car into it or whatever. That was cool. And this is great, like the fact that um he found Helen Cutter, like he found the camera and all that, but that he still doesn't know if, like, I mean, it gives him some hope that she's still alive, but he doesn't know. And that ending, like, where he's back in his when he's back in the college or whatever it is, and to the university, and like, and he's like, Helen, and he like runs after her, and it's like he doesn't know if it's her or not, and then you end it. I think it's just a really great way to open the series, and I think episode 1, it's not my favorite of the series. That comes later, but I think it's like a great setup for the rest of the show. Like, for 45 minutes, it romps along. There's plenty of action. We got a great creature. CGI is still pretty good apart from Rex. The characters are great. And yeah, probably give it a 9 out of 10. It's a really good start to the series, but just not my favorite episode. And that's it.
Ooh.
You there, Ollie?
I think maybe Ollie went. But yeah.
Do you want to start?
Well, I'm not going to go into a basic plot, but I'll just give my opinions on it. I really like this episode. It's a great mystery. Like, it really sets up the whole mystery of the show as well as the series. I mean, I watched this live when it came out 10 years ago in 2007. What a great year that was. I just can't believe it, really, that it's 10 years old. I remember watching this very vividly. But yeah, it's a great show. This episode in particular is always, I don't know, it's not my favorite of the series, as Jack said, but it's got it's up there. I really do like this one. Sets up the characters really nicely. I think all of their introductions are pretty cool. I like Claudia's in particular, and she just goes up to him and kisses him at the bar. It's just so random. But it kind of sets her character up as well. You got the Helen plot, like what's going on with Helen, who took the picture.
Sorry to interrupt you, Louie. Just very quickly, Jack, what would you rate episode 1 out of 10?
Oh, I already said I'd give it a 9 out of 10.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear because I had to go very quickly. But thanks. Sorry, Louie.
Yeah, like I said, I love the creature. The Gorgonops is great. I mean, Rex is really cool as well. He's kind of like the team mascot, the little cute creature that reoccurs throughout all 5 series. Then you have the Scootosaurus, which is pretty cool, like the big tortoise thing. I mean, I really like the fact it's in the Permian era. It's a cool period of time. I like the fact that we don't actually have a proper dinosaur. It's just like lizard mammal. And I love the Forest of Dean as a setting as well. It's pretty cool. Like the scene with Ben in his room, it's a bit like, surely his mum would hear that, but I think it just really helps set up the premise of the show. Like, there's these prehistoric creatures that appear in your house, like your everyday life. It wouldn't be like in a haunted house or in a crypt. It's in the real world, and I really like that. As I said, it just sets up the series really well. Like, you've got so many questions at the end of the episode that you just can't wait to watch the next one and find out what the hell's going on.
Oh, is that it?
Well, yeah, I'm not going to go into like episode, like everything that happened, because Jack's already said that. So,
oh, sorry. What would you give it out of 10?
I think I'd give it a 9.
Mm.
Maybe a 9.5. I don't know. I just really think it's a strong introduction.
Mm.
I know a lot of people that were unsure about the show, and then I sent them the link to the first one, and they were just like, "Oh, actually, I got this all wrong. This is great. It's not just dinosaurs. It's characters and plot and mystery."
Yeah, it's television. Well, I pretty much agree with you guys. I don't think I could give it a 9 out of 10, but I think this is a pretty great introduction to the show. It definitely sets up the general premise of the show very well. But what impresses me more is the characters. I was very surprised at how much I connected with the characters, particularly Cutter, or Nick Cutter. The whole plot regarding his wife, Helen, and all of that. The fact that the show opens in Asda, I just think that's hilarious. And that's a really cool opening.
Imagine if it opened in Wix.
God, yeah. God, no,
That's what I mean. It kind of just sets up the real world feel like it could happen at any Asda or.
Yeah, maybe the Creature Storm 2 for 2 offers. Who knows?
Buy one Gorgonox the pod, get one free.
Yeah. I really like the characters. I think, as I said, Nick Cutter, he's very interesting. He's easily the best team leader that the show's had out of the 3 leaders that
Silly ass.
I haven't seen New World. No, he's really good, and I kind of like that he's a Scottish bloke. It's I can see like people make parallels between that and Doctor Who, with because at the time David Tennant was still the Doctor. So
yeah, but to be fair to that point, Doctor, like he had a Cockney accent, so
I wouldn't say it was Cockney. I don't think David Tennant had a Cockney accent. I think it was more.
That was the one that he said but he was like, "Oh, I've put on my Cockney voice."
It doesn't sound
a very good Cockney accent.
It doesn't sound Cockney at all, but that's beside.
It definitely doesn't sound Scottish.
Yeah, no. I just meant in terms of the fact that both actors were Scottish. But anyway,
it's quite funny, really, that both my childhood TV heroes were Scottish.
You might as well go back to Edinburgh and live there. Who knows?
We've got another Scottish Doctor as well at the moment.
Yeah, that's true. But
An
anyway,
actual Scottish.
Anyway, I'm digressing. Other characters. We've got Claudia Brown. Like you guys have said, the introduction with her is quite bizarre, but it works. The kissing in the bar. It's where a lot of people seem to meet nowadays, and I think it's like what Louie said about the real world feel. It's just like you can meet these people anywhere. Somehow, all of these people come together. Connor, who's like this university student, he's a bit of an idiot, but he's also very intelligent. It's kind of odd. He's so clever, but yet he's a bit idiot. He's a bit of an idiot when it comes to practical things, and he kind of finds his way.
I don't think he's an idiot. He's just a bit clumsy.
He has no common sense.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, he's got no common sense, but he's lovable. Like, he's just funny. And Abby, who's the zoologist, she's really cool. She's very spunky, and
she's fit.
Yeah, that too. And then the other one being Stephen. Stephen is my least favorite of the team, simply because the actor James Murray gives a very bland performance. But even though he's much better than Matt in series 4 and 5, it's still he's the weakest of the original team. There's just not much to his character. He's just basically a macho man. He's basically there to just kick ass. He doesn't have knowledge like Cutter. He doesn't even have any particularly interesting things about his personality. Like you said, Jack, he's ultimately he's just a pretty boy. He's the eye candy. And later on in the series, they introduced this whole thing about Abby fancying Stephen, which is just pointless. I mean, that's the only reason why they brought him in, is just so he could be a sort of a love interest, not just for Abby, but we'll discuss that later. But he's all right. I don't think he's terrible, but he's just the least interesting for me. And then you have, obviously, Ben Miller as Lester. He's fucking hilarious. I mean, the show wouldn't be the show without Lester. I mean, his humor, I mean, even though Connor is hilarious, Lester is probably funnier. Lester's the funniest character in the show. His lines are so dry, so witty.
And I mean, in series 1, he's not even in it as much as the rest of the series. So, like,
yeah,
Jack, you've got a lot to look forward to in terms of Lester. Like, he gets more and more screen time as the series goes on.
Yeah, that's true. In series 2, especially.
Actually, in 4 and 5, he's in it quite a lot.
Yeah, and even 3. So yeah, I mean, for the scenes he's in, he's very good. And his humor is really is really good. As for the rest of the episode, I like it. It's great. You know, it's pretty simple. It's just establishing the characters and the premise of the show, but it works. I mean, the whole stuff about you know, the young boy. I think his name's Ben. I can't
Ben
remember. Yeah. Like that scene. It's as great as it is. It's a bit flawed. It's like, how would the mum not hear what the hell is going on? She must be tone deaf. Like she must be deaf or something. I don't know.
That's how I think of it. She's deaf. They're just.
I mean, it's a shame they never revisited this character because he was one of the first people to actually discover that there was a floating shard of glass.
Well, if it wasn't for him telling them, they wouldn't know.
Yeah, exactly. So he was the one, like, it was an innocent bystander who actually discovered the anomaly. So yeah, and then obviously Rex comes through. Rex is cute as well. And you know, the CGI is pretty impressive for the time. I mean, some of it holds up really well, more or less. The biggest complaints I have with this particular episode is the technical aspects of it. It's shot okay. It could be shot a little bit better. There are so many grainy shots which really bother me. As a person who does all this kind of thing in college, it just bothers me that there's so much grain, and the shaky cam, you just can't see what's going on. I don't mind shaky cam as long as it's used effectively, but here it does compromise some of the action a little bit.
I think it's grainy because it wasn't filmed in high definition. Like, you know, if you watch Doctor Who series 1 to 4, you notice a lot of grain on the DVD. I think that's why.
No, I know why there is, but because it's also shot in low light as well, like it's just very noticeable. I don't mind.
Sorry, go on.
I don't mind there being grain, but if they could have made it less noticeable, it would have been better. But
in what you just said about this shaky cam, like, I agree with you, it's annoying, but I don't think it's that bad in this series, and particularly this episode. Like, when you get to series 4 and 5, when it's used every scene, that's when it becomes a problem for me.
Although in series 4 and 5,
but 4 and 5, like, they use it every 5 seconds.
Yeah, but no, those are only minor problems. Like, I still enjoy the episode, but those things are a little bit distracting, but not majorly. The script is very good, actually. I'm very surprised how good the script is, because it's not just them. God, excuse me, I'm getting under the weather. It's not just them chasing the dinosaurs. There's character development as well, and Juliet Aubrey, for the brief moments she has as Helen in this story, is also good, and she kind of just turns up at the end and then just goes away. She's very mysterious. And the part when they actually go through and find all of the items, which actually obviously comes around in episode 6, that's very clever. So as a setup, it's great. Like I said, the only things that bother me are the shaky cam, the grain, which is the huge amounts of grain. But this is a problem that they fix as the show goes on, so they do improve on it. I don't think it's the strongest of the series. That's just my opinion. So I'll probably give it an 8 out of 10, but it's still very entertaining. It's still very entertaining.
Yeah, I don't think it's the series.
Sorry, I missed that. You broke up a little bit.
I said I don't think any of us think it's the strongest, but we all like it.
Yeah, I mean, I rated it as second from worst, but no, I mean, I think all the episodes are great, but it's not. I mean, it's not the worst, but I just don't think it's the best either. I just think there are stronger episodes, but this is only a setup, so.
We say it's kind of like Rose for you, like it's good, but just not the best of the series.
Yeah, if you want to compare it to Rose, yeah, sure. So yeah, I give this one an 8 out of 10. Also, I love the opening title sequence and the music. The theme is awesome, and also just the general score by Dominic Scherer is brilliant throughout the series. So let's move on now to episode 2. So Jack, what did you think of episode 2?
Yeah, episode 2. I'm gonna be honest. I think this one's the weakest of the series. I know you all think episode 5 is the weakest. But for me, episode 2, it's just a bit of a filler episode, really. I mean, I agree with Louie. It's just it's just not the best. I mean, after episode 1, which set up all the characters and was a really good introduction, episode 2 is just a bit like, oh, yeah, it just feels a bit filler. I mean, the whole stuff with these, like, you know, centipedes and all that, I mean, that's cool. I like that. But the episode itself is just, there's not much character development. I mean, we do have character development with Abby and Connor, like, when Connor lies to Abby about, Stephen being gay. Um, but just the whole, just the story itself is just, it kind of drags in places. Like, it's 45 minutes, same as the last one, but it just drags in places for me. There's like moments I'm watching, just like, okay, can we get to the main plot here? I mean, for me, there just isn't enough character development in this story compared to the rest of the series. It just isn't enough character moments or character development. I mean, we have stuff with Connor and Abby, which is nice, but I kind of agree with you, Ollie, that you said earlier, like the whole, Abby fancying Steven subplot it's pointless. Like, it goes nowhere. Like, it's just like,
it doesn't suit her character because she's more spunky, and when she's like, "Oh, I can do the girl thing," I don't know why. It just, to me, it doesn't suit Abby whatsoever.
Yeah, and I just think it's a bit pointless. It's like, oh, do we really need this in this episode? Like, why does she fancy Steven all of a sudden? Like, she did in the first episode, but now she does here. I just think the story itself, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad episode. I don't hate the episode. I think the episode is good, but there's just not enough going on here. I mean, Lester's good for the scenes he's in. Nick Cutter's good. I mean, I think in some ways, I mean, it makes sense why they did it. Like Nick firing Connor, like, when they go to the Forest of Dean or some other forest, I think it is, and then his friends scare him with the T-Rex toy dinosaur thing.
Tom and Duncan.
Yeah. And then, Connor's like, well, then Nick comes, he's like, you're fired. I mean, I can understand why they did that. Make you feel sorry for Connor. But if you think about it, really,
you're fired.
yeah. But if you think about it, really, it's kind of pointless because he's gonna, he's gonna be part of the show anyway. Because I mean, at the end, he's allowed back on the team anyway. So I kind of felt that was a bit. I mean, I could understand why they did to make to make you feel sympathetic for Connor. But if you think about it, it was just a bit pointless, that subplot. I mean, the story. I mean, I like the centipedes and all that. Like when they have to go inside the tunnel and they find out another anomaly, and when Steven he gets bitten and he's poisoned and he sees Cutter, and then he tells Nick, and we see Nick. We see after that Steven's brought to the hospital, and he's saying like Abby, like he really fancies her and stuff, and then he's like, oh, we can have breakfast at my place. He's like, result, and then he's taken away. I mean, finding the anti-venom, that was cool, and when you got Connor back on her side, that was awesome, but for me, it's just kind of a bit like, after episode 1, it's like, okay, let's just have another episode. It just kind of feels like filler. It's just not great. I mean, it's not like terrible. Like, I'm not gonna say that it's awful, but it's just kind of like, I think you could have just skipped over this episode and you wouldn't have missed much. Like, it doesn't really add anything to the series. Like,
well, only the reveal of Helen, really.
Yeah, and she's only in it for like a few seconds. Apart from that, it doesn't really add anything to the series. It's kind of like it drags in places. I mean, there are good stuff, like I said. I like Connor in it, and uh, you know, uh, Nick Cutter's good, and I like the millipede. That's cool. The huge centipede or millipede they find. And then when they go inside, like Connor finds, he's like, oh, look for holes in the ground, and then they find it, and then they manage to kill it at the end and get the anti-venom and save Steven. But apart from that, it's just a bit of a meh episode. It's just one that I wouldn't go back to again. I don't think. I mean, I may go back to it, but it's just not. I mean, it doesn't really develop the characters that much. There's just not much going on in terms of plot, in terms of structure. It's just a kind of meh episode. I mean, I still think it's good, but it's just like, you could have done so much more with this episode. It's just kind of like, we'll have this pointless subplot with Abby and Steven. We'll have Steven getting poisoned, and then he's okay at the end, and then Connor getting fired, and then he comes back anyway. So it just kind of feels like a pointless episode. And
I wouldn't say that was pointless. It might be pointless for this episode, but for the overall arc of the series, because Connor matures as he goes on, so I think it helps him sort of mature in that sense. And that scene with him and Abby when they're looking for the creature, I think that's a nice scene between them two, developing their relationship. So I wouldn't say that was filler, but I understand where you're coming from.
Well, yeah. I suppose that stuff isn't filler, but the whole stuff with Steven's filler, and just I don't know,
Well,
just the episode, it just doesn't really.
I suppose it is like the whole Steven stuff, but it kind of adds to his reveal at the end of the series, like why he's acting so strange. Like this whole romance is like because he never pursues it. He's like, oh, I've got a girlfriend, but we never see her. But I always think that his girlfriend is Helen that he's referring to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Allison person that he's referring to.
No, but I mean, I just think it is a bit pointless having Abby have a crush on Steven, and then the next episode he's like, "Oh, I've already got a girlfriend," like, and he doesn't even remember what he said. So in that terms, I mean, it's not bad. I mean, I think the whole Steven dying is, when they have to get the anti-venom, that's cool. But I just think the episode just doesn't really develop the characters that much. I mean, you've a bit of stuff between Abby and Connor, but apart from that, doesn't really add anything to the series. Like, it's not a bad episode, like I said, but just not one that I would rush back to. So I'll probably have to give it a 7 out of 10.
That's fair enough. Louie.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Well, I agree with Jack. I think this one is the weakest of the series. Like as a kid, I loved this episode, and I still do like it. I just don't like it as much. I mean, like I remember watching it and being like, "Oh, cool! There's insects this week, and it's in the underground." And again, it builds that real world feel. Like I do disagree with the whole. It's just there's no character development. I think this episode is just character development, especially kind of like Connor and Abby, but mainly Connor. It's like last week you're like, why is Connor really part of the team? Like he's not really an expert in any of this. But this week it kind of cements him in like why they need him in it. It's kind of like a little. It's like the beginning of his arc really that doesn't really end until series 5. Like,
I did say there was no character development. I think there's. Sorry to interrupt. There is character development between Connor and Abby, but apart from that, they're just. I don't know.
I get what you're saying. I'm just saying I think it is more character development, but I agree it's quite slow, and at times it's just like, oh, can we have a bit more mystery about the anomaly to do with Helen? Like they do give us a bit.
It does take a while to get to the climax. I'll say that, but
just a bit like it feels like two stories like put in one. Like you have the beginning part with like the anomaly in the woods that turns out just to be a prank, and then you have the actual anomaly, and it's just kind of like.
There's no tension with Steven being stung because we don't know enough about him to care about him by this point.
Yeah.
I reckon if it was Cutter that was stung, you'd be a bit more like.
Yeah.
But that's all I've really got to say. Really, like I do like the creatures. I think it was cool that they went for something different instead of another lizard reptile thing.
I mean, I don't know if you'd agree, Louie, but the setting I like.
Yeah, I think the setting's probably one of the best settings they have for this particular series, like the underground.
Yeah. I don't think
Ben Miller... me a bit of Web of Fear with Patrick Troughton, but yeah.
I can't remember. Is Ben Miller actually in the second episode?
Yeah, he is, because it's the scene where he's like, you've taken to him, haven't you? And she's like, I trust him if that's what you mean.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Claudia's good.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it's more development for Claudia. I mean, it's just getting to know the characters a bit more, but it just, I don't know, they needed something in this episode to kind of make you like, oh, edge of your seat, but
I just don't think there was as much intrigue as the first one.
I think they tried with the whole Steven getting stung, but I agree with Ollie. You're not really attached to him yet, so it's just a bit.
Yeah.
Watch this episode and I see the Connor and Steven and Abby romance, and it's just kind of like after this and maybe episode 6, it's never referred to again. So it's just like, nah.
I agree with you, Louis. I don't think there's enough mystery with this episode. Like, there's not enough about the anomaly, but yeah.
I'll probably give this one a 6 out of 10.
Fair enough.
But it's not bad by any means. Like, it's no way. I would take this over anything from Series 5.
Yeah, actually, I think I might bump it down to a 6 as well. Just, yeah.
I had a feeling you'd say that. Oh well. I'm afraid I'm gonna have to disagree, guys. I'm sorry. I'm in the
No, I want to hear why, because it might change my opinion.
Well, again, the thing is, I'm going from memory. I haven't watched this one for a while, since I reviewed it. Actually,
Same.
I think I actually enjoyed this one more than the first one because I mean, you know, don't kill me. The first one,
No.
as good as it was just the setup for me. This was the first time we kind of saw. I mean, not saw them in action, but a bit more of them in.
I know what you mean.
So like, and the setting for me made it much more like the suspense I really liked in the setting, like them going underground, and the millipedes I thought were a really genius idea, and they should really reuse them because I think they were really cool.
And the spiders as well. Like, I remember, like, everyone was talking about the spiders at school, and
yeah, I really love the opening scene on the train. It, like you said, again, creates another real world feel. I think it's just darker. It's a darker episode, and that's what I liked about it. It was there was a bit. We're starting to get tension between the characters, like Connor and Cutter. Like Connor's acting like a bit of a goofball, and you know, I mean, the whole romance thing could have been removed. So I agree about that. That wasn't necessary, and the whole joke about Stephen being gay. It's like
Connor's really creepy in this one when he's like, "We should huddle for warmth."
Oh yeah,
it's a great impression. Should huddle together for warmth, and then she just looks at him and he's like, "Oh no." Yeah, Connor's a little bit creepy, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess there's not much mystery, but I like the action of the episode. It's suspenseful, it's pretty action packed towards the second half. Yes, it does take its time a bit, but I think because the show is now established, I just think it's a ton of fun. It's a ton of fun.
Oh, it definitely is fun. Like, it's not boring to watch. So I wouldn't watch it and be like, "Oh, this is."
As I've said earlier, I don't think the Abby fancying Stephen plot is really necessary at all, and it doesn't suit her character. She's too spunky to dress up in a dress and stuff. I mean, it works with Connor because their romance develops over the show. Oh, sorry, spoiler alert. But yeah, and I like.
It's funny. Louie told me they actually married in this series. Like, they actually were dating. Like,
Well, yeah,
not in the show. I mean, like, as actors.
Yeah, I know, in real life. Yeah.
Again, the music is great. Yes, I guess you could say to a certain extent that the Abby and Connor scene that was filler, but it kind of wasn't. It was character development, but the whole thing with Tom and Duncan pranking them was maybe that wasn't necessary. But I enjoyed this one. I thought it was really good. I mean, Stephen being stung, I think they could have chosen somebody else to be stung. I think it might have been better to have Cutter being stung, because then Helen could have appeared and been like, "I'm waiting for you, Nick. I'm waiting. Cuckoo." Like, come
in his ear.
Yeah, like come to the other side of the anomaly. I think that might have been more emotionally impactful to have Cutter being the one that was stung rather than Stephen, because no one gives a shit about Stephen. Like, why? Who's going to care when that guy gets stung?
One thing I will say is, as a kid, I always wanted him to go through the anomaly because it looked so cool.
What, Stephen or Cutter?
No, just like one of them to go through the anomaly just to see the carnivorous area. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. The problem is also the fact that Stephen gets stung is that no matter whether he's being stung or not, he makes the same face. His face is blank. He has no emotion. Literally, even if he's being stung or not, there's no emotion.
He does just kind of go.
Like, he makes those kind of noises, like, and like he's sweating a bit, but that's it. He recovers pretty easily. But yeah, I mean, that's all I can really say about it. It's I think it's fun, and I prefer it to episode 1 because of that, and I like the darkness of it, and I prefer the creatures actually. I like the Gorgonopsid, but I prefer the millipedes here. There's much more suspense for this.
I'm actually surprised you prefer to episode 1, because to me, episode 1, just the reason why I preferred it is just because of the mystery and all that. Like episode 2 is just kind of like, I just don't know. Just for me, there's just not much going on for the episode apart from Abby and Connor. Just like,
yeah, well,
fair enough.
Fair enough. Opinions are opinions. I'm probably going to score this the same rating though, 8 out of 10. I don't think it's much like a huge improvement over the first one, but I think it's a little bit better. But I like both of them a lot.
It's just your personal preference.
Yeah, it's just a personal preference. So, seeing as you're here, Jack, let's move on to episode 3, the halfway point of this series.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, episode 3, I actually really enjoyed this one. I mean, after episode 2, which I'm going to be honest was a bit disappointing, episode 3 is like a really great return to form. I mean, I think episode 3 is just so great. Like I love the opening of this episode where you have that couple in the swimming pool, and then that guy jumps off the board, and then he gets eaten up by that alligator or whatever it is. He's eaten by that like alligator dinosaur. It's just a really sorry.
It was just like the best to see that guy die. It was just so funny.
And then the music was really eerie, like the
yeah. No, but I mean that intro is actually really scary, and then when he gets eaten up, like it just jumps out of nowhere and kills him, and then it's like tries to kill the girl. It's just a really interesting way to open the story. And I just think the creature here is a lot more intriguing than the millipede and stuff from the last episode. I mean, the millipede was cool, but it's just kind of like, oh, it's just a giant insect if you think about it. I mean, here we got this sort of alligator dinosaur thing, and it's really awesome. I love the darkness of this episode. Like, I love the fact that this alligator dinosaur thing is just going around killing people. Like you have that scene where that basement is flooded and the guy's like, "Oh, your dog's enjoying the water, isn't he?" It's like, we don't have a dog, and it's like and then you see that like giant sort of, I don't know, what was it, sort of bird looking thing? I can't remember. Like,
or the Hesperornis or whatever it's called.
It looks like an ostrich. Well, kind of.
Yeah, an ostrich. Yeah, it's quite creepy. And then it like, and then like that dinosaur thing eats him, and then it's like the woman screams, and then it's kind of disgusting later when you see Nick, and he's just like, oh, it regurgitated him, it spitted him out. It's like, oh god, and it's quite funny when Lester's like at the start of the episode, it's like we have Connor beside the anomaly, and he's just like, oh, who's this idiot? And he's like, he may look, and like Nick Cutter's like, he may look stupid, but you know, he's got a good brain. And he's like, well, at least we've got a college student on our side. Like, it's quite funny. Like, yeah. And after that, you know, when we see, I mean, Lester's just such a dick. Like, that bit where like he says, you know, we're gonna put her in jail. She committed the murder, and he's like, what? You know, it's like the dinosaur regurgitated him, and it's just like, oh well, she might have just dumped his body in the river. It's like, oh yeah, and swallowed him up and spat him out. And I mean, I also forgot to mention, I like that line as well in episode 2 when it's like, oh yeah, I forgot to mention that line in episode 2 where it's like, the teacher was scared, and the kid was it's like the teacher was scared, and the kid, like, nobody believes him. He's like, oh, it would have been better if the dinosaur ate them, you know, only joking. Like,
yeah.
I mean, he's just such a sarcastic prick, but it's kind of what makes him
lovable.
You
just wait till series gets worse.
Yeah. No, but I mean, as for the episode itself, I love the dinosaur, and I think the characters get a lot more development as well. Like, you have Abby and Connor again, and you can see in this one that Connor, you know, he's trying harder, and you know, and yeah, I love that scene where the you know, where they're in the water, and then the alligator dinosaur attacks them, and he tries to defend Abby. Like, he puts the rowing oar in the dinosaur's mouth, and like he gets rid of it, and like she hugs him later. She's like, you know, you saved my life, and she's like, okay, you can stop hugging me now. Like,
yeah,
quite funny. And I like the anomaly in this one. Like I said, I just love the darkness of this episode. The fact that this alligator's going around everywhere in the city, like it's going through the sewer system or whatever, and then it goes for the anomaly, and then we see Nick goes for the anomaly, and we see Helen again, and like we're introduced to Helen properly in the series in this episode, and that when she's swimming in the water, and she's like, "Okay, I'm decent now," and
I see you found my message.
yeah, and I'm gonna be honest, even though Helen is a bitch, she is attractive. She's attractive, and when Nick's talking to her, and
I mean, don't want
I
to
just love that scene with
Jack, I warn you, don't let her get her claws into you.
yeah. No, I mean, her. Yeah, I know, but I mean, that scene is quite good though when he like confronts her and he talks to her, and like you just see how much of a careless bitch she is in this episode. You get more of that as the series goes on, but you just
I wonder what
I mean, like when Nick's like, "Oh, you left me for 8 years," it's like,
I'm not
did
sad.
you see me mourn?
I wonder what it would have been
Yeah.
like to see their marriage like before she goes through the anomalies, whether she was the same or whether she was different. I wonder why he actually married her.
Something tells me she was still a bitch.
Yeah.
Mm.
Maybe she like manipulated him into like falling in love. So maybe he thought he was in love with her, and then they married for whatever reason. But who knows?
I think they said because she had a strong personality, and that's what Nick likes, like a strong personality. But anyway, but anyway, I really like that scene where they talk to each other. He's like, you left me there for 8 years, 8 years, and he's like, I mourn for you, and she's like, oh come on, Nick, you must have moved on. Everybody moves on. It's like, not me. He's like, were you at the funeral? And she's just like, what was it, a good funeral? And I really love Douglas Henshaw on this. You can tell Nick is really pissed off by the fact that she basically just abandoned him for 8 years. Like she never even came back, and that everybody thought she was dead, and he kind of thought she was dead, but he didn't believe it. And he was basically still trying to find her after 8 years. And I just think that scene between them is great, where he basically, he's like, I don't know you anymore, and when he's talking to her, and he's just basically, he's pissed off of her because he's been for years he was like mourning her death, and she just doesn't seem to give a shit, and you just kind of want to slap Helen, just like it's like you basically, you're a bitch, you abandon him and for this. And like, I mean, one thing I did kind of laugh though at this episode was, I mean, it's nothing to do with the episode itself. It's just kind of funny because she's like, I could give you the key to time, Nick. The key to time. I just couldn't help but think of Doctor Who, like the key to time. Like that was kind of funny, and it's interesting because in Germany
The
they
Black
call
Guardian.
yeah, yeah, she's the Black Guardian, Nick's the White Guardian. But like, no, I couldn't help but I couldn't help but just think of Doctor Who when she said the key to time. It's funny because in Germany this episode's called the Key of Time, like, but and it's also fun. I think in America and this episode's called the Underwater Menace or some other episode.
That's next series.
Yeah.
Episode 4 is called the Underwater Menace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in here it's just
No, but anyway,
episode 3.
yeah, it's just called episode 3. But I mean, yeah, that seems kind of amusing, but just because, yeah. But anyway, I love that scene then when he's just like, she's like, come with me, I'm only human, come with me, and he's like, no, it's like, you want me to come with you and abandon everything I know, abandon my home, and then he just basically decides, fuck you, bitch, I'm going back. And then when he goes back to the anomaly, and then he's nearly attacked by that underwater alligator, and then this bigger one grabs it and eats it. Like,
Never smile at a crocodile.
I can imagine just Liam Neeson coming and saying, "There's always a bigger fish."
Moi moi moi.
Yeah, but yeah, but then when Nick, his mask comes off and they have to pull him for the anomaly, and I just love the ending where basically, he sort of realizes how much of a bitch Helen is, and she abandoned him for 8 years, and she never even like came back. And I don't know. I mean, I think episode 3 is probably one of the strongest of the series. I mean, I think it's the strongest of the series so far. I take it over episode 2 definitely, and even episode 1. It's just such a great episode. I mean, there's so much going on here. The underwater creature is just so awesome. I think the characters are great. Like Connor and Abby are developed more again. You got a scene where he saves Abby, and you got Helen finally revealed, and we see Nick finds out about her, and we finally get you know development of her character, and you see how much of a bitch she is. And it's such a great episode. I mean, episode 2 bored me in places. Episode 3 just it flied by, and watching episode 3 really wanted me to watch episode 4 as well. It just like as soon as I watched episode 3, I wanted to watch episode 4 straight away. I know, yeah, I forgot to mention that ending's great, where like Helen is taken through the anomaly, and like Nick sees her, and that's the end of the episode. And overall, I just really love episode 3. Really great episode, and I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10.
Wow. Luis.
Yeah, I think this is definitely the strongest so far. It's thing for me is after this, there's not really after this episode, it's just uphill. Like there's not really any stinkers. I don't know. You guys think episode 5 is weaker?
It's not a stinker. I think five is decent, but it's not as good.
I just like all of them like equally after this. Like for me, this episode's just what Primeval should be about: mystery, cool creature, in a cool setting, and the team trying to get it back through the anomaly. It's not too sciencey. It's not too futuristic. It's not too all guns blazing. It's just a bit of fun, like a fun romp with mystery in it.
Bummer.
I love the fact we get to go through the anomaly again. We get to see Helen for the first time. I agree with Jack. When she says the key of time, I couldn't stop laughing. Because I watched it before. I knew about the key to time Doctor Who, but like when I rewatched it, I just couldn't stop laughing. It's like the key to time, Nick. The key to time. Do you not see what I'm offering you? But it's great. Like the Mosasaur. I think the CGI is really good in this one in particular. Like the scene where Connors fights the Mosasaur with the oar from the boat. I don't know about you guys, but I think that's probably probably one of the strongest CGI scenes in this series.
Yeah, it's really good.
That, yeah.
It's aged really well.
I just love the design of the Mosasaur. It's all like crocodile and bumpy skin, like all. It's just cool. The swan reptile, the Hesperornis, that's pretty cool as well.
Swan.
It reminds me of a swan, like the way its neck's all bendy. And I love
saying that reminds me of Hot Fuzz when they put the swan in the back of the car.
But I love the bit where the guy goes down. He's like, "Oh, your dog's enjoying it," and she's just like, "We don't have a dog," and it just kills him. Like I said, it just ramps up the series, like with the twist at the end that Helen's now in the present and she's been brought by force into the present day. It's just like, oh, like, it affects every character, and like it's the first time really you start to see the team doubt Cutter. Like Claudia starts to doubt him, and it's just really like the tension's ramped up. Like, I just really enjoy this.
I mean,
probably one of the ones that
there's a scene between Cutter and Stephen when he's like, she was important to me too. Like, is that this episode?
Shadowing. Yeah, I think it is. It's like he starts to remember, and it's foreshadowing like the affair. But for me, I don't know. This is probably one of my favorite episodes of the series. Like, I wouldn't say I think episode 6 probably like the best and my favorite, but this one is one that I think is just so strong and it holds up so well. Whenever I think of series 1, this one immediately pops into my head. Like, I really enjoy this one.
And out of
10 out of 10.
Oh, 10 out of 10. Excellent. Well,
what about you, Oliver?
Thank you.
Oliver Leak.
You do not give me orders. Yeah. Episode 3, I watched it again recently, and I really enjoyed it. It's it's a fantastic episode. I wouldn't go so far as to call it 10 out of 10, but it is very, very good, and it is the strongest of the first 3, definitely. There's a lot that happens in this one. I love the beginning section with the diver, that's really cool, and the eerie music, which we hear, which we obviously hear in series 2 as well.
Oh, I forgot to say the Cretaceous Seas is played the first time in this episode, and it's great.
Yeah, and the Cretaceous Sea thing, which is rendition of the original theme, is brilliant. Like it's fantastic. Dominic Scherrer is just a genius. Like he created a great soundtrack.
The trumpet theme for series 4 and 5 as well.
No, he didn't do that because he left after series 3.
Right.
But yeah, I think the episode's great. Sorry about that. It's much more dramatic and intense than the first 2. There's some great moments between Abby and Connor. Cutter is obviously, this is when, as you say, this is when they start to doubt him. He's still emotional. He knows that Helen's alive now because Stephen has told him that she's waiting for him on the other side of the anomaly. And we get foreshadowing of the Helen-Stephen affair as well, which is interesting. The only problem I have with this episode is that it is a nitpick, but it does feel like 2 halves of 2 episodes combined because of the setting. Like, the settings are good. I love the settings, but it feels like they took one setting from one half of another episode and the other half from another episode and stitched them together. Because the first half we spend around the lake and the swimming pool, and then the next half we spend in the house. It's just a bit odd, like going from that and then the 2 separate creatures. I would have rather have just had the one creature, the mosasaur, and have Cutter go through the anomaly where the mosasaur was. If the mosasaur could have been from the Permian era, then Cutter could have gone through that anomaly to see Helen, and it still would have worked fine. I think it would have been a little bit better, but I'm not going to knock the episode.
Sorry, I kind of like the fact that it's different though, like you're in different settings, because this is the only episode I think where they introduce a temporal fault line idea that the anomalies can move. But
yeah, I like the different locations as well. It adds more to the story for me.
Where are we going now? And it's interesting as well to add this, like, for series 1, every single episode, I think apart from episode 6, has more than one creature in it.
Fair enough. I don't mind. I think just for this episode, it would have worked better just to have the one creature because we have all the stuff with Helen. It's a bit. I mean, I like the fact that there's a lot going on, but so just the locations are so different. It's just quite bizarre, but that's just my opinion. And I love the music. I don't think Stephen really gets to do very much. I mean, apart from at the very beginning, they have that scene when Abby dresses up and then she's like, I can do the girl thing. And then, he's like, I'm going to see Alison, my girlfriend. And she's like, oh, shit. And then Connor's like questioning Stephen in the swimming pool. He's like, I'm flattered, but you're really not my type. So there's some nice humor as well. The episode's intense, and there's a lot of tension between Lester and Cutter as well. And then the ending when they kidnap Helen and bring her back to the Ark is quite intense. And the scene between Nick and Helen, I really like. It's the first time we really get to see Helen's character, because we almost we don't know much about her until now when we start to say, oh, okay, so she's a bit of a bitch. And sorry.
No, I just said a bit. She's evil. Evil. No, I'm joking.
She's prime evil. Joking.
Cutter is he's very knowledgeable, but he doesn't seem to pick the right women, other than Claudia. Why the hell did he marry this woman? Seriously, she is an absolute bitch. She's so selfish. She doesn't care about him. She cares about the key to time. Not referencing Doctor Who there whatsoever. And yeah, and that scene is interesting when she's like, oh, you're rejecting me. And he's like, I'm asking you to come back with me. It's like, he's trying to be reasonable. He's trying to offer her a way, like a compromise. But she's not having it. She's like, oh no, it's my way. Like, basically, she's like, I give you the key to time and you want to go back to there. It's like, it's a very interesting scene. It's a strong episode. It really is. It's really intense. There's a lot of great character moments, and Abby and Connor gets some good stuff to do as well. Claudia's getting very getting very tied up. She's kind of torn between Lester and Cutter in the sense of trust. She obviously kind of fancies Nick, but and you know, is her trust in him is dwindling because he lied to her about Helen being alive. But Lester's getting really impatient with everything. He's just like, can we just progress now, please? You know, we need to know what's going on. So the tensions are rising, and it's the halfway point of the series. So naturally, it is going to do this. And I would probably give the episode a 9 out of 10. It's just the location hopping that is a bit odd to me. It doesn't bring it down too much. But I just think it would have been better to just focus it. Like, because jumping to that woman and her kids is like, what? But
I think it kind of brings it back to the feel though of like it could be in your house. You could watch like you're like, oh, there's a dinosaur in my kitchen.
Yeah, no, I'm all right with it, but just do it in a different episode. Like, don't do it in the same one as the mosasaur, and then you've got all the main stuff of Nick and Helen. I just think maybe it was just a little too much, but you know, it's a minor flaw. But I give it a 9 out of 10, so I think it's very good. But yeah, it's not my favorite of the series, but it's definitely better than the first 2 episodes. So, Jack,
I'm here.
Oh, so we now move on to episode 4.
Yeah, episode 4. Again, really enjoy this episode. I think this is probably my favorite episode of the series. I'm gonna have to agree with Ollie in giving it probably the best episode of the series. I mean, this episode is much more of a character piece, and it's what I really enjoy about it. I mean, I think you know, the fact that we get more on Tom and Duncan, and the fact that Tom is suspicious of Connor, that's really good. And I mean, you know, this story, probably out of all the 6 stories, it's the one with the least amount of creatures. I mean, our main creature here really is a dodo. Like, I mean, I think the way it starts is really cool. Like the fact that you have Nick interrogating Helen in that sort of underground base or whatever, and she's not telling anything. And I love Lester, like she's like, you know, I have rights, you know, you can't kidnap me. He's like, well, technically speaking, you're dead. And and I like the scene afterwards where she's talking to him and she's like, well, I can't tell you anything because technically I'm dead or whatever. And like Lester is really good in this. He has quite some funny lines. I like Nick in this episode. I think Douglas Henshaw is great. Like that scene where he confronts Helen, like you can tell he's still pissed off with her for like leaving him for like nearly 10 years, and he's just like, you know, he's like, maybe I can help you if you just tell me what the hell is going on or whatever like that. You know, it's just great. And then when she says like, you know, you've got a problem on your hands, you know, there's an anomaly going to open up in central London, and then they have to go there, and you know they're suspicious of her, like Claudia Brown and all. They're like suspicious. Well, Claudia, sorry, is like suspicious of like Helen, and they go to this football stadium, and then they find the anomaly. And I mean, one thing I did kind of go like really like is like that scene where like the anomaly opens. Like, did nobody think of like, you know, holding her back or putting her in handcuffs or something? Because I mean, she just, as soon as that anomaly opens, she runs straight through it. And I mean, one thing I will say, it's really cool is like when they go through the anomaly and they find this like, you know, spaghetti junction of, as they call it, of anomalies. That's really cool. You see all like these other different anomalies leading to these different times and places, which is really cool. I think what's just so great about this episode is, like I said, it's more of a character piece. Like we see Tom, he's spying on Connor. Like he puts that like ET key ring or whatever it is, Roswell key ring on his bag. And I like that scene where like he goes to see Abby. He's like, you know, give me a kiss. He's like, come on, like just to show off to my mates, and she does. And they're like, oh shit. Like, and I mean, one thing I forgot to mention in episode 2, and sort of get this throughout the series, you know, Abby and her pants switch, you know, that's quite nice.
Quite.
You perverts.
You know,
Yeah, like Tom and Duncan perv on her as well.
Yeah. No, but you know, that's the best part of the episode, though, joking. The rest of the episode is really good. Like when we see them, like it's just so funny the way Tom and Doug are like, it's a conspiracy theory, like all this, and when the dodos escape. I mean, one thing I will say, like the dodos, the CGI is still pretty cool, and the dodos are kind of cute. I mean, they're dumb, but they're really cute. And when one of them escapes and they bring the dodo home, and I just love that scene where like the dodo's like playing around with the remote, and he's like, bad Dodie, you know. It's great.
Yeah.
And he's just like, he's like, give me the remote, and he's like, okay, you can choose, and then we see basically the dodo goes nuts, it goes mad, and it actually attacks Tom, and like we see Tom basically become infected, which I thought was really good, like the way he becomes infected and like he doesn't know what's happening, and it's funny, he's just like, that scene where the dodo throws up, and he's like, no, don't you throw up, you'll contaminate it. It's like the dodo sick will be a fortune on eBay. He's like, it's like this guy's gonna, and it's like when it destroys the TV, it's like, don't worry, it's gonna buy us a 40-inch plasma screen TV. All that's funny, and I just love the fact that he's like all into this conspiracy stuff. Kind of reminds me of someone else in this community. No, but I mean that's good, and then you got the stuff with Connor and the team, and you have that scene where the dodo dies, and that worm thing or whatever it is comes out and it tries to attack Abby, and they manage to stop it. They manage to capture it, and they basically find out it's this very early prehistoric, or even before prehistoric times, like parasite that goes into the dodo and like affects their, like goes into any creature, like, and affects their behavior, and then it hatches eggs just before it dies, which is interesting. And then when you get Tom infected, I mean that's quite dramatic. Like we see him basically, he's trying to stay away from the light because the light is bad for him, and he sees basically, he doesn't trust anyone. He's lost his trust in Connor. Like that scene where he's in the bathroom, and then like Connor phones him in the toilet, and he's like, "No, you're part of this conspiracy," and he like throws it down the toilet. And then when he's given the MRI and he's scanned, and he basically bites that he bites or whatever that doctor by accident, and then he runs away. And I mean, what I love about it is it is more of a character piece. It's not really about the creature, it's more about the character. Like you see what Tom goes through, and you see what Connor goes through as well. Like
well, the creature is almost Tom. Well, the parasite that's in Tom.
Yeah, and the guy who plays Tom, he's really creepy as well. Like that scene where like he confronts Abby, and he's like, you did this to me. He's like, and he's like, you're part of this, and she's like, I can cure you, whatever. And then he like tries to bite her, and then they go in the car and they go to the football stadium, and at the end when he tries to bite her, I mean, I think the whole parasite thing is really good, and the actor who plays Tom's great, and that scene at the end is just so powerful when you see sort of like pointed at him, and we hear earlier, like Nick says, maybe if we get him early enough we can remove it. And that scene where Connor confronts him, and he's trying to console him, and he's like, this was all a conspiracy, wasn't it? He's like, and he's just kind of saying, yeah, big time. He's like, remember the good times we had, Battlestar Galactica and all that. And what?
I just heard a crackle there.
Yeah, so did
That
I.
was Louie.
It wasn't me because I heard it.
Oh, it doesn't matter. But also, Jack, I wonder, like, we never found out what happened to that doctor that got bitten as well. Like,
Oh yeah, I think either they got it removed or
yeah,
yeah.
we
But
never.
anyway, I just that final scene is great where he's like consoling him. He's like, this is all conspiracy. He's like, yeah, big time. And he's like, remember Battlestar Galactica, all those good times. And he's like, and you think he's gonna bite Connor, and they're pointing the guns at him, but it turns out he's not. And he says like, I'm a good person or whatever. I'm a good guy. And then he just flops over and dies. And it's just such a, like, I mean, that music is great. The do like the Tom dies. Great. It's just such a, like, it's a really powerful moment because it's like, oh shit, like people can actually die, doing this. People, and the fact that it's Connor's friend, and when Nick comes over to him, he's like, I can't do this anymore. I can't go through this anymore. And Nick's just like, you did your best. Like, he would have loved it if you'd continued carrying on. He would have loved it, and then you sort of have the end of the episode after that. And I just think episode 4 is really great. I mean, yeah, there's not really a creature in it, but that doesn't matter. It's more about the drama and the human characters. And I mean, I don't know if it's Ollie's favorite of series 1, but if it is, I can see why, because it's just such a great episode. I love it. I just love the drama and the fact that, and that's saying at the end, with the music, Tom dies, and and Connor, and the fact that Connor is like really shocked by it and he doesn't want to go on. It's just so great. I mean, yeah, I guess you could say it would be nice if we had more of a creature, but it doesn't really matter for me. And I think it's just such a great emotional episode. And for me, I'd say it's probably my favorite of series 1 out of all 6 episodes. And I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10.
Oh, nice. Louie?
My phone's just ringing, so I'm going to have to go for 5 minutes, so you take over.
Okay.
And I'll give you my thoughts when I get back.
Okay. In that case, I'll do my thoughts. Yeah, I pretty much agree with Jack. I love this episode. It is my personal favorite of the series because it raises the stakes. When I was younger, I didn't really watch this one very much. I don't know why. It wasn't my favorite when I was younger, but now it is. I really...
Was it because there was like no creature, would you say?
I don't know. I honestly don't know the reason. I just didn't watch it as much. I don't know why. It's weird. My opinion of episode 5 was much. I used to watch that one a lot more, and now I watch episode 4 a lot more. But yeah, I really like this one. It's great how it just suddenly continues after episode 3 with the interrogation of Helen. It was funny, the opening when they found that snake in the flat as well of that woman. That was funny.
There's a snake in my boot.
Yeah. And Lester's being his usual sarcastic self, which is cool. And the Dodo stuff is quite cute. It's nice to have a change in the sense that we have more of a fun-filled creature. It doesn't always have to be a venomous creature. So it's nice to have. This is the first creature that we sort of see that's kind of innocent. The dodos, they're quite cute. I mean, the real villainous creature of this story is the parasite that infects Tom. I don't know how dodos are required to parasites, but fair enough. I mean, it makes the episode so intense having a person infected and who's a victim of this. I think this is one of the best written episodes of Primeval. It's so good, and how this now raises the stakes in the sense that innocent people are going to die. Somebody dies from this. And it really hits Connor how personal this is to him because, he feels guilty for Tom's death. He feels like, oh, it was my fault. He should never have. If I'd never got involved, he would still be alive. And it was nice to see the emotions, the emotional weight of this episode be reached to an all-time high by the end. So that was very, very nice. And the actor that plays Tom, this is really his episode, and he's really good. Just with the way he's like trying to stay out of the light, the way he's like coughing and kind of spluttering, and the way the parasite has infected him. And the way his eyes turn different color when he's because he's trying to fight this, and when his eyes turn, that's really creepy. And his scene with Abby is really, really intense. When he's chasing her through the football stadium or the corridors as well. That was creepy. I think this is one of the best lit episodes of the show. I know that's a weird observation to make, just because they make more use of the shadows and the dark. That's really creepy. And the CGI is great too. I mean, and the dodos are quite cute as well. The dodos are pretty cute. I do feel though Helen, yeah, she just disappears. she just disappears. She's not in the episode too much. But she's pretty good. And there's other character tensions as well. Like Cutter is kind of in denial. He feels that well, he's like, oh, Helen wouldn't do that, you know, Helen wouldn't do this, you know. He's still kind of blind. His judgment is blinded.
Yeah, I'm
Just
surprised he said that after episode 3, which he basically disowned her.
yeah. I think because he was angry that she just abandoned him, but now he's like, oh, you know, I know her, she wouldn't do that. So yeah, it's a bit strange how he just suddenly kind of, you know, ignores all the bad stuff that she's done, but it's not a major problem. But then, you know, Claudia's like, oh, she's your wife, you got to keep her under control, and obviously she fools them again, and she goes away into the anomalies. So, and obviously the spaghetti junction of anomalies is a very interesting visual moment there. I mean, some minor things like, you know, certain characters who don't get as much to do, but like Stephen and Abby, but well, no, not Abby, Stephen, he doesn't get too much to do, but that's not too much from because it's not his story. Tom and Duncan, it's their story, and they do a good job. And the actor that plays Duncan, he's pretty good too. They think how there's this whole conspiracy and everything, which is quite good. And the scene at the doctor's where Tom bites the doctor is really intense too. It's just a very intense episode. There's very little comedy in this episode, which works. I mean, only in the first half of the episode when Connor's being goofy, like when he's sort of, you know, bashing the spoon against his head, he's going, and then you know, that was good. Connor has a bit of comedy, but then, you know, it all gets to an emotional end when Tom dies, and that is one of the most well-directed, most powerful scenes of the show. It's brilliant, and the music by Dominic Scherer is fantastic.
Yeah.
I do listen to that track quite a bit, actually. I've got it on my iPod. It's a very, very moving track, and
Used in Bond Life as well.
yeah, we did actually. Yeah, I love this episode. It's fantastic. I don't really have many problems with it, at least not that I can think of. It would have been nice to see more of a reaction from Duncan in the final scene with Tom, but you know, he just kind of stands there. He doesn't do much. Like, Connor doesn't go over to Duncan and comforts him. Duncan just kind of stands there. So it would have been nice to have Duncan come down and get involved in that last scene with them two, but Connor is more of a main character, so I guess I can understand why they did that. And you know, it's brilliant. It's most well directed, and you know, when they're about to shoot him, they're like, "Connor, move away. He'll kill you." And then he's like, "No, he won't." And you know, just when they're talking about, you know, the good times when he's like, "Oh, you know, we used to have Thursday nights, you know, pepperoni pizzas and all of that, Battlestar Galactica." You know, that's really brilliant. It's all written really well, and you start to see how serious this is. So yeah, I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10 easily. It's near enough a masterpiece. Yeah, it's and actually, funny enough, Jack, don't want to spoil anything too major, but Duncan does actually return later in the show, in series 4. So
Louie already told me.
Yeah, so we get to see how he's coped since Tom's death. But yeah, a fantastic episode, really, and it's my favorite of the series easily.
I think I agreed with you. I think we both agree it's the best in series 1.
Louis?
Well, I like it. Yeah, I like this. For me, this episode was always the worst as a kid. Like, I just didn't really think it was that good because there's not any creature really. Like, you have the dodos, but then it's like the parasite. But 10 out of 10. It's a great character piece, and it's kind of creepy as well. Like the effects of the parasite on Tom, like when you see it going through his neck, and they say, "Oh, it lays eggs in the brain." It's just like, ugh, it's horrible.
Jack, you laid your egg.
Like, I love the bit where they say like, "Oh, it lays its eggs in the host's brain," and Les is like, "Oh, isn't nature lovely?" It's great. However, I don't agree that it's the best of the series, and I get why you two think it is, and I would completely respect that. It is masterful, it's fantastic, but I just think it's not really what Primeval is. It's like a one-off kind of shows the consequences of what happens. But I prefer Primeval when it's like the mystery and like them fighting a creature, not when it's too caught up in it stuff. Like, I do really like this, but I think if the show was like this all the time, it'd be too much. And I think they do kind of try to make it like really emotional. Free. And towards the end of series 2, they tried to make these kind of episodes where it's more about the characters and more emotion. But I do really like it. I mean, it's nice to see Tom and Duncan in the forefront because they're kind of just like background characters throughout this series. But for me, I don't know. It's not my favorite, but it's not my least favorite. I just prefer episode 3 to this because it's just a bit more. It's kind of episode 3 is more like the template of the actual show, like the best it can be. This is just kind of like a different take on the show, and it's interesting to note this is the first time a different writer has written for the show. But yeah, I do like this one, but as I say, it's not my favorite. It never really has been. Oh, looks like everyone's on mute. It's my show. I've taken over.
I'm still here.
Ooh.
But yeah, so I do really like this one. Don't get me wrong; it's definitely 10 out of 10, and the score at the end is just like gives me goosebumps. Like it's one of the best directed death scenes.
Yeah,
it's amazing, and I love the theme so much, and it's really used again, which is great. And it's just like I sometimes listen to that if I feel really depressed or something, because it's just really like nice way to relax.
Yeah,
Listen to that.
it's funny.
Primeval.
It's funny you find it uplifting because it's supposed to be sad.
No, I don't find it uplifting. I said it's sad. Like it fits my mood.
Yeah.
So, we now move on to episode 5. Jack.
Dun.
Yeah, episode 5. Again, really like this episode. I know this is your least favorite, Ollie, but I have to disagree. I think episode 5 is still a really good episode. I mean, I think, yeah, probably when you compare it to episode 3, 4, and the finale, it is the weakest. But I would probably rank this maybe middle of the series or maybe second worst. But that's still not bad. I still think it's a really good episode. I mean,
I think it's just probably the most like fun the series gets. This series, like, it's probably the most like light-hearted one.
yeah, and yeah, I can see what you mean. I mean, I like the opening where they're on the golf course and there's that guy who gets killed. He's like putting his ball and then he
Tiger Woods, eat your heart out.
He's a right dick, that guy. I was so glad when he was murdered.
He's just a pompous snob.
yeah, he was just like, oh, I've already got it on the green. Like, yeah. But I mean I think that shot is really good. Like when he into the river, well, into the lake, whatever it is, and then he has to no the pond, sorry, and then he has to like get the ball, and it's like you see that shot of the skull, and like then he goes into the trees and then he gets killed. I mean, it's quite dark. I mean, you don't see him getting killed, but you see the blood in his shoes.
You see his feet lift the ground as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a dark way to open up the episode, but yeah, I mean, as for the episode, I really enjoy it. I mean, you have the beginning with Connor, like, making breakfast, and, like, Abby's there. She's like, oh, you shouldn't have. He's like, shouldn't have what? Like, he just made it for himself. And you see him basically staying out at Abby's house and playing games. I mean, one thing I will say, like, the way he's playing the games just kind of really overdone. It's really stupid the way he's, like, jumping up and down. Like, it's kind of... but I mean, it's kind of funny because the game he's playing is actually Oblivion, which is one of my favorite games. So just watching that in the episode, I was just kind of laughing. But I mean, I think the episode is really good. Like, you see, Abby, she's like, "Oh yeah, you said you're going to be here a week, but now you've been here a month," and he's like, "I'm working on it." And I mean, I think this episode, you have much more character development between Claudia and Nick. Like, we see in this episode that they think it's this pterodactyl, and I kind of like the fact that this episode that you think it's a pterodactyl, but it turns out to be something else. It's like a nice twist. And I like the scene where like Connor's in the car, and then he drives the car to the golf course, and then Rex is there, and then Rex escapes and is chasing after Rex, and we see that and like Nick spots him and everything, and then he manages to get away, and then Rex is gone, and and then Abby gives the game away that she kept Rex, and I like that bit where Connor's like, that was a bit of fun, and like Nick's just like, you silly ass, like
You silly ass.
it's just really funny, like it's hilarious because like Connor is a bit, he's just a bit reckless, like, and I mean, I think the CGI is really good here. The pterodactyl looks great, and I mean, I love that bit where like they're chasing pterodactyl in the city, um and what was it? Stephen, they're on the roof, and they got the trank gun. They're trying to shoot the pterodactyl, and when Nick asks for Claudia's shirt, you're like, oh come on, please, and it's like, nope, Steve, and it's
For
like,
God's sake, Stephen, will you just shoot it?
yeah, and then Stephen has to use his shirt instead. It's like, no, but anyway, like, and then when he shoots, and they shoot the pterodactyl, I think that's really good. But like he misses like twice, and then he finally gets it. And then you have it landing like really close to Claudia, and she's like, well, "That's it, Nick Cutter. From now on, you're taking your orders from me," and it just knocks her out. That's just hilarious. Like,
She's dead.
yeah, and
Is that
after
why
that, I
she
mean,
can't see them in the next scene. She has like her vision's impaired, like because she got hit by the pterodactyl.
my vision is not impaired.
Sorry,
At the same time.
sorry. One at a time, Louis.
We just said exactly the same thing.
Yeah, but I couldn't hear you. You're both talking at the same time.
Oh no, we just said the same.
Yeah, but what
Thing.
was the answer? Like,
Oh no, I didn't. We just both said in a Dalek voice. My vision is not impaired.
all right. Well, is that why she? Because she got hit by the pterodactyl.
Yeah, that's why.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
Sorry.
but I like that scene where she wakes up and she's basically like, everything's fine, Nick, except one thing I can't see. And you're like, oh shit, like this is quite dramatic. And then it turns out, like Nick says, that no, it's all right. You're just concussed. That's why you can't see anything. And I mean, I like the scene where he's basically like, you'll be okay in here, you'll be okay. And then she goes to the door, and she sees all these bats, or like these sort of dinosaur bat things. And she slips in the blood, and they trying to smash through the window. And I also really love that scene where Connor or Abby are looking for Rex, and then you see the bats in the background. They just turn around and see these like dinosaur bats on the tree. I mean, that's quite scary. And I just love the twist, the fact that you think it's a pterodactyl, but no, it's not. It's these other creatures. And
It's a swarm of pterosaurs.
yeah, pterosaurs. That's it. And I love that bit where like Nick is like, when Claudia is like, she's slipping up in the blood, and Nick grabs her, and he's just like, "Oh, it's the blood. They can scent the blood." And she's like, "Oh, am I badly covered?" He's like, "Yeah, just a little bit." Like, that's quite funny. And then when that scene where the glass ceiling smashes through, and like he's like, "Hold on, like take off your shirt," and after saying like, "Wow," that was a nice
I like
scene.
to
Like,
say. So I like to say
Yeah.
that I hope it's a female pterosaur that breaks the glass ceiling.
yeah,
The first female.
yeah. No, but I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I did like the scene where he asked her for a shirt, and she saw Claudia Bry.
Oh, this is becoming a bit of a habit, isn't it?
Yeah, no, but I mean, and it was cool afterwards. When he brings her in the room, and he's just like, "I'm going to go to the ambulance." He's like, "Will you make it?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll make it." And then he just kisses her out of nowhere, and it's kind of like you're building up to this throughout the whole of series one. Hold on one sec. Someone's calling me. I'll be back. Just one sec.
It's Helen. She's calling for Jack. Oh, Jack!
I cannot wait
No, yeah.
to do the series 2.
I'm back.
Maybe once
Yeah,
Jack's in episode 2, because he's only got one episode to go until he sees it, we can do a commentary on it.
Oh, well, no, just on that scene in general.
No, anyway, I like the bit where where they kiss, they kiss, and sort of been like building up to it in series 1, and then we see he gets this like gas thing, and he like tries to light it, and he makes this like gas lighter thing, which is quite cool, and he like burns the bats. And I mean, one thing I will say is like he keeps the thing on when he's not even killing the bats, and then he's like, "Oh, I've run out of gas." It's like, it's so fucking obvious. It's like you should have turned it off when you weren't using it instead of just keeping it on when there weren't any bats around. But I mean, I like the scene where Claudia's in the room, and then it's like she hears the bats come down the chimney, and she gets the golf club, and then she hits one of the bats, and she's like, hole in one, like, and then you see all the bats, and she's trying to fight off all the bats, and then yeah, we're introduced to Helen again. I mean, and Helen just kind of comes out of nowhere, but it's kind of cool that when she helps Claudia, and they go into the kitchen, she turns the gas on, she puts like that metal she puts that metal pot in the microwave, and she like blows up the place, and she manages to run out, and they both get out in time. And I like that scene where Nick sees the explosion and he thinks she's dead, and then he's just like, "Don't ever do that to me again." And then it's like the captain comes, and he's like looking at Nick. He's like, "Oh yeah, I did it with a zip gun and some fire." Like, that's quite funny. And then in the ending, which is quite cool, where we see Connor's like, "Oh," when they lose Rex, and Connor's like, "Don't worry, Abby, I'll do all the washing up for like he's like, "Don't worry, Abby, I'll leave. Like, I'll leave tomorrow." And she's just like, "You could stay on one proviso. You do all the washing up for a month and cook me breakfast every weekend." And he's like, "Oh, thanks, Abby. Like, you're only joking, right?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, well, you're hard but fair." And and the ending's great. We're like, they're on the cherry picker, and they're luring the pterodactyl. Like, you think the pterodactyl's going to leave, but it goes back into the anomaly, and that's the end of the episode. And overall, I think episode 5. I mean, I think it is a step down after episode 4 and 5. Sorry, episode 3 and 4, but I still think it's a good episode. I wouldn't say it's the weakest of the series. I know, Ollie, you think it's the weakest of the series, but personally, I take it over episode 2 because I think there's more character development here than in episode 2, and I just love the twist in it, and I just think there's a lot more going on here. It's a lot better paced, and I mean, I wouldn't say it's the best of the series, but for me, it's definitely not the weakest. I still think it's a pretty good, entertaining episode. I just love the development between Nick and Claudia. Like, you finally see them kind of falling in love with each other, and then when he kisses her, that's great. So I'm going to give episode 5 a 8 out of 10.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Louisa.
Well, like I said, I don't think this is the best of series 1 at all, but I don't think it's the worst. Like, I think it's a really fun episode. Like, for me, this isn't very story arc heavy. Apart from the Helen bit at the end, it's just more like character development, like Abby and Connor's relationship. They get a nice sideline story. You have
think about it, even the Helen bit at the end. There's no reason why she actually turns up. It's just
that I was gonna get. Yeah, I was gonna get to that. It's just a bit random. Like, I think she must have been contracted to appear in every episode or something, because it really feels just like, oh, like you're like, what, Helen, you're here. Like, it's a cool twist, but it's kind of like, what?
because she just leaves. It's like, oh, it just comes out of nowhere.
It's like, oh, she's here. Oh, she's gone. But I don't like have a problem with it. I think it's different. Like, it kind of it makes you doubt her again, like her motives, because she actually saves Claudia. So you're kind of like, okay, she's the bad guy. Okay, she's the good guy. Okay, I'm really confused, but I'll get to that in a minute. Like, I really like the idea of Rex escaping. I mean, for one little lizard, they get a lot of storylines out of him, especially in future series. Like, that was a cool twist to see Rex appear as part of the action. I mean, Connor and Abby, they get their own little storyline, and Claudia and Custer get their own storyline. Steven's in it for a bit, and then he goes away, which is
It's quite funny when he's tastes the dung, and Captain Ryan's just like, that's just wrong.
Yeah, it's disgusting. But it's like, no offense to the actor who plays Steven, but it was quite a nice break from Steven. This episode, like, whenever I rewatch series 1, for some reason, it's always this one that I rewatch. Maybe because it's just a bit of fun. It's kind of like what Primeval should be, a creature on a golf course. Find out what the hell's going on. I mean, I really like the twist, like Jack's pterosaurs, and the pterosaurs are creepy things. Like, oh, they're horrible. Like, the swarm nature of it. I love the stuff Fine Rex, and they're there. I mean, this particular storyline, it's pretty cool. Like, you have the hotel golf course place that Claudia gets stuck in, and she's trying to get out, and Cutter has to leave her, and they kiss, and it's like I really like the direction they took with the shot of the kiss. It just looks really great, like the sunlight
Yeah.
behind
There's
them.
hope for Cutter with women.
And it's kind of like a lot of people don't like this relationship, but I think you can tell it's happening. Like it builds up throughout the series
From the first episode, because they kiss in the first episode as well.
But
Well, you can understand why he leaves Helen for this girl.
Yeah, I mean, I really like and I think it's a really good episode. Like I think it's not as powerfully like emotive as the last one, but I don't think it's like a step down in the sense of like, oh, it's not very good.
It doesn't need to be though. It doesn't need to be that emotionally powerful.
Yeah, I think it's kind of nice after last week's heavy story arc based, like all the consequences, a lot of emotion. This is kind of like calm before the storm of the finale. Like it's just a nice romp. Like
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
it's not too serious.
Other than the reference to Tom's death, yeah.
Although I think maybe they could have brought that up a bit more. But then again, like I said, you don't really want it to die like the whole death of Tom. Like the reference they give is nice, and like Jack said in his a couple of weeks or even months before, after Tom dies. So it's kind of like it wouldn't make sense if throughout the whole episode they're just Tom's dead, or it's kind of nice to see that Connor's
moved on.
Yeah, not moved on, but he's just getting there.
Yeah, because
I mean, one thing I did forget to mention there, I kind of agree with Louie. It would have been nice if they brought up Tom more, but I'm kind of glad they didn't in some ways because, you know, we need to move on with the story, and it's just more of a fun romp, like Louie said. That's what I like about it.
I mean, I love the visuals of just like the green grass, and it's just a really nice idea.
Also, regarding Tom's death, the end of the previous episode, like they wrapped it up then, and Connor was like, "I can't do this anymore." Like, and then that scene with him and Cutter was like the bringing closure to that. He's like, "Oh, you can't bail out on me now." So they kind of did already have.
I know, but people still have grief. They're not just gonna forget about someone like straight after they die. Anyway, that's all I was saying.
But no, I agree with you. I agree with both of you. It's kind of like, but I agree that his friend did just die, so he's not going to be like, "Oh, okay, I'm cool with it now." But the reference they give is nice. Maybe you could have had like at the end of the episode, Connor rings like, I don't know, but it works. Like I've not really got any faults with this episode.
You did have that brief scene where he looked at his picture.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like maybe at the end of the episode he could have texted Duncan or something. I don't know, but I kind of like the ending. I know it's kind of cheesy, like the music but it kind of just shows like how much this team has grown together.
It's the camaraderie between the group.
And it's really the last story that they're all together.
Yeah, because of Claudia in the next episode.
And like next episode's really, it wraps everything up and leaves and answers some new questions. So it's just like this is like a nice, I don't know, it's kind of like series 1. If you had to show someone in an episode other than the first episode, this is like a nice introduction. Like, this is the team. This is what they do.
Yeah. What would you rate out of 10?
Probably a 9. Just because, I don't know, it's just like something that I just really enjoy this one. It's just a lot of fun. Like Jack said, the CGI is great, and the rooftop scene when they get the pterodactyl down and it hits Claudia, that just really made me laugh on first watch. And it's quite gory as well with the guy's death. But, yeah, that's really it for me.
Cool. So yeah, episode 5. As Jack has pointed out, this is my least favorite episode of the series. I used to like it a lot more, but it has gone down in my opinion. I don't hate the episode. I do think it's good, but it's just for me because the thoughts that you guys had for episode 2 is kind of how I feel about this. It's just filler. Other than Cutter and Claudia's relationship and some Abby and Connor moments, there's not really much in terms of the arc of the story. Like Helen's appearance just comes out of nowhere. It feels really forced, like her saving.
No, I can see that. It's just kind of like, oh, Ellen's here. Oh, Ellen's gone.
Yeah. It's just unnecessary. And for me, the biggest letdown was I'm sorry to say, was the pterodactyl. I really would have preferred to see more of the pterodactyl than the babies. But I do like how they are kind of like a swarm. So it's cool, but I just don't think they're the best.
I just wanted to say the reason I think it makes sense is because in real life the pterodactyl ate fish. Gone off. Sorry, I said in real life the pterodactyl would have eaten fish and small lizards, so it wouldn't really make sense for it to eat the people.
Yeah, no. I'm what I'm saying is I'm okay with the babies, obviously for the scenes.
The pterosaur.
Yeah, whatever they're called. But the actual pterodactyl would have been nice to kind of see more of that in the earlier stages of the story.
That's fair.
But I do think it's decent. Like, it's decent. It will do. It's fine. It's fun. It has its moments. Again, it's not as emotionally powerful as episode 4, but I don't think it needs to be that. It's fine. It's a Cutter and Claudia episode, and it works well. I mean, I like their relationship. You know, it's quite nice as it develops over the series. And Abby and Connor scenes are really good too. When Rex escapes, those are fun scenes. You know, at the beginning when Connor's trying to save Rex. That golfer at the beginning is just a prick. I do think maybe the opening scene is a little bit too long. It kind of goes on a bit. Like, the suspense isn't as strong as some of the other episodes, but it's still good enough. You know, it's a good episode, and the ending is nice, seeing the camaraderie of the team. I think it was good that Stephen took a bit of a back seat in this episode. But yeah, there's not really much. Like, I mean, Lester's not in it as far as I'm aware.
No, this is like the only episode he's not in, I think.
Yeah, he's not in it, which is all right. I don't mind that. But it would have been nice to sort of have more of a progression in terms of the whole kind of Helen thing and the whole kind of story related to the anomalies. This is more just about the characters. Like, it's a character piece, which is fine, and it's just like but to me, it comes across as a bit filler, not completely, but just a little bit filler. So pretty much what you guys thought of episode 2, I think of this. But it has good moments and it is fun, and I certainly do enjoy it, but it's not the peak of the series for me. Like, I'd be all right to skip this one and go to episode 6, but because there's nothing of huge importance that really happens in terms of the overall arc of the story. Because I mean, obviously, the only thing in episode 6 that they reference episode 5 is the Helen appearance, which is kind of random. It doesn't really make sense that Helen would actually save Claudia. It doesn't work with her character, so I don't know why they did it, but oh well.
I think it does help though with, like, you don't know if she's good or bad.
I guess, but it's so forced. It just comes out of nowhere. So you might as well have just scrapped the scene altogether and had Nick.
But it's a shock. I think it's kind of like, oh, Helen's here. Like, what's going on?
I mean, the shock factor was good when you thought Claudia. Like maybe if you didn't see it, I think that would have been better. So like, still have the part when Claudia's like, Helen saved me, and then maybe have it as a flashback in the next episode. I think that would have worked better, actually.
I just think if they did that, it would just be like baggage for the next episode. Just like, because I think next episode features Helen. It's kind of like it's a Helen heavy episode. So
yeah, but this doesn't need Helen. But that's just my opinion.
Cop out as well if you just did a flashback in the middle of episode 6. It wouldn't explain what happened in episode 5. It'd just be like, what?
It would just time from episode 6.
No, it would, because it would have the exact same scene that we have here, but just for the suspense that Claudia's still alive, and just to show you how she got out in episode 6, it wouldn't diffuse any kind of.
Well, episode 5 would just be weaker if you're watching it before, because you just wouldn't know what's happening.
I mean, Jack, what did you? Because you've seen this for the first time. You haven't seen it like more than once. So, like, what? When the Helen bit came up, were you a bit like, "Oh, Helen's here"? Like,
yeah, I can understand why Ollie thinks it's a bit forced and you don't need it, but it didn't bother me that much. Like, I mean, we know that Helen can come through anomalies, and she probably knew that something was going on because she probably went through an anomaly, and maybe she was the one who released it, or. You know, she probably found out about it anyway. I mean, I can understand why Ollie doesn't like that scene because it is a bit forced.
No,
But
I never
agree.
said I didn't like it. I don't mind it. I just don't think it works in the episode. Like
I think it's fine, to be honest. I mean, it does come out a bit. It does come out of nowhere, but for me, it wasn't like it didn't like piss me off, or I wasn't just like this makes no sense.
I didn't say it pissed me off.
I know that. I'm just saying, for me, it didn't piss me off. I'm just saying
All right.
that. I'm just saying, for me, when I saw it, it did come a little bit out of nowhere, but I was fine with it. I mean, it was all right.
Anyway, let's move on before we repeat ourselves. It is a good episode, but for me, it's now my least favorite. But I'd give it probably a 7 out of 10. It's decent. It's fine. It'll do. But they're just I have flaws with it. But I like the series overall, so I can't say there's a bad episode in there. But we now move on to episode 6, which is the final episode of this series. So, Jack.
Yeah, episode 6. Watched this last night for the first time, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, I think after episode 5, which was a bit more of just a fun romp, this is a really good wrap up to the series. You get a lot more of Helen in this episode, and thankfully you get more of Ben Miller's Lester because he wasn't in episode 5. I don't know. I just love the way it kind of ties in the whole series. I think Douglas Henshaw maybe gives his best performance of the series so far. He's really good in this episode. I think Juliet Aubrey, like as Helen, you really see how much of a fucking bitch she is. Like, you have that start bit where we see and we see Stephen, walking, and it's like you think you see Helen in the background, and then she's there, and then they get a beer together, and then she like kisses him on the lips. You're just like, is something going on here? And then of course you find out later. But what else I love about this episode is the fact that it isn't a creature from the past. It's actually a creature from the future, which is interesting because Primeval, it's mostly about past creatures coming in to the future. This time,
Did you know this was going to happen, Jack?
No.
So that was a bit. What was your reaction to like when they're like, "Oh, it's a creature from the future"?
I was like, "Oh, cool. That's interesting. I haven't done that before." I mean, the creature itself. I mean, it is cool the fact that we do have like a creature from the future, and I mean, the creature itself. I mean, its vision, like that sort of thermal vision it has, kind of remind me of like the Predator from.
Well, it is called the Future Predator.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny, but yeah. I mean, the look of the creature itself is really cool, and the fact that it is like from the future instead of the past just kind of adds more to the story. I think. I think the characters here get a lot more to do. Like we see that scene where Nick, where Claudia comes and talks to Nick. She's like, "Oh, you kissed me on the lips." He's like, "Yeah, so," and she's like, I could have you done for sexual harassment. I mean, that's just quite funny just before she leaves. And, I mean, you really see the characters get a lot more to do in this story. You get the wrap up of Helen and stuff. And, I mean, that scene where Helen like comes to them, she's like, "Oh, we got to meet, but on my own terms, like, meet me at this bridge or whatever." That's quite good. And I think Juliet Aubrey gives a really good performance as well. Like, her performance as Helen is great, and the scenes where they come to like where they arrive and like you have Ben Miller's Lester, and she basically tells them it's like this creature from the future. That's interesting, and when they find the anomaly and it's basically the anomaly is reopened in the Forest of Dean. That's cool. I mean, I just love the way it ties back to the original, to the first episode, and the fact that it ties up series 1, the fact that the anomaly is reopened in the Forest of Dean. Yeah, that's good. I mean, and when you and I love the scenes where you have Claudia with Nick, and they're basically talking about the relationship, and Nick, he doesn't know if he loves Claudia yet or if he's still in love with Helen. I mean, I think he I think by the end of this episode, he realizes who he's in love with, which I like. And I mean, you know, Helen is just such a bitch in this episode. Like, she's like, they go back to their house, and she's like, you know, I still love you, Nick, or whatever. She says, like, you know, you're still my husband, and you know, you have that scene with Claudia and Helen in the zoo, and you know, one of the lions escapes, and Connor's there, and Abby, and they find this like messed up bat blood, and it turns out this creature's some kind of bat sort of creature thing, and you know, that scene where where Helen confronts Claudia in the zoo, and she's just like, he's my husband. She's like, yeah, well, you abandoned him, you left him, remember that, and and then, you know, I mean, you can really see how manipulative Helen is. Like that scene where they're where he's like, oh, I'll go and camp out in the spare room, and she's just like, no,
We're still married.
yeah, we're still married, and like she's coming on to Nick. She basically wants to seduce Nick, and like Nick's just like,
You know,
no,
sorry to interrupt. You know, Louis, they should have called this episode when the tiger came home for tea.
Oh God! No.
yeah.
Oh, it's when she does that, and she's like looking in his eyes, and she's like, "Oh, Nick, come in." Ah!
Yeah, she's like standing in front of the door. She's like, "You don't have to. We're still married."
Yeah.
My vagina aches for you, Nick.
You know, and he looks as if he's about to kiss her, and he's like, "Excuse me."
Back the fuck off.
You know,
I don't like tigers.
Sorry, Jack.
That's all right. No, I mean, and that scene, yeah, I mean, you can basically tell Nick's just like, "Fuck you. I'm not going to bed with you." You know what I mean? You
Oh, yeah.
abandoned you've. It's like, you've abandoned me for 8 years. I'm not going to sleep with you. And then, you know, you have that bit later where, you know, you have Claudia and all that. And I mean, I really just I love the fact that it does tie up series 1 so well. I mean, you have all these references to the first episode, like the Forest of the Dean, and then when they go through the anomaly, that's great. And just before that, you have that scene where Claudia comes up to Nick and she like kisses him, and she gives him this like really big kiss, and like they go through, and like Nick's just like, and she's like, "Oh well, I see you've got plenty of attention." And he's just like, "Yeah, it works for me," or something like that. It's great.
Yeah.
And
I love Lester's bit where he's like, "How unprofessional."
yeah,
He's like, "Stuff professionalism."
yeah, that was funny. Yeah, stuff professionalism. Yeah, that was funny. Yeah, and then when you go through, and then you basically find out it's the same place from episode 1. Like we see, and we see like Helen still trying to, like, you know, still trying to seduce Nick. Like when she's just like, "Oh, take a picture of me," and he takes a picture of her, and he's like, he remembers it's the same picture from episode 1. He's like, "Shit," and he's like, "This is," and he basically thinks that it's Helen who died here. Like, that, you know, it's her who died here. And I love the creature in this episode, this like this future predator, as Louis said. It's really cool, and I love the fact that the Gorgonox pod returns. And yeah, I forgot to mention earlier that scene where Claudia has that like, she has that like nightmare, or like that daydream of like the Gorgonox pod like attacking her. Then she wakes up, then it attacks her again. She wakes up again. I thought that was a bit cheesy. It's like, okay, like she wakes up and then it's there. And
Oh, I
she
like
wakes
that
up
because it's
again.
kind of like a jump scare, because you think, oh, she's woken up, and then it just kind of like
Yeah.
happens again. You're like, oh shit. Or,
Yeah.
You
No,
actually
I don't know. It's
see,
fun. It
Claudia's-
wasn't bad though. Yeah.
sorry, you're both talking. I didn't hear a word any of you said.
Jack, go on.
No, you go on.
No, it's fine. I'll wait till I talk about my thoughts.
All right, fair enough. But yeah, I mean, and then when they go in, and then you have that really awesome fight between the Gorgonox pod and the future
The
predator. That's awesome. Like when it's the Gorgonox pod's defeating it, and then it's like attacking it. It's like cutting the side of it and all that, and then like you think it's gonna that future thing's gonna kill it, and then it falls back. The Gorgonox pod falls on it, and then it kills it and takes it away. And they see that like all these sort of like baby future
predators. That's interesting. And yeah, I like the ending, like where you see them go off, like and then the captain dies, like the captain and all his men die, and I mean, I know Ollie says the captain's sort of the weakest character of the no, not the captain. Steven's the weakest character of the show, but I'd probably say the captain is, because he does nothing for like, most of the episodes. He's just kind of there, and when he dies, I wasn't glad that he died, but it was kind of like, oh well, like I mean,
Well, there's
I
not
do.
much you could do with him. He was only there just to be a military captain. So
I
that was
do like his line earlier in this episode, I think, or it was the previous episode. He's like, "Are we gonna kill it?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Good." I was beginning to think I was a social worker.
Yeah, that's in this episode because Nick's like, oh, it's from the future, so if we kill it, it has no effect on the past nor the present. He's like,
Yeah.
great, I was starting to feel like a social worker. No, he's like, shoot to kill, that makes a change.
Yeah, yeah. No, and when he dies, it was just kind of like, oh right, so that's the guy who died in episode 1. And then when
pretty
they come
creepy
back,
as well.
Yeah,
That he's in his own body.
yeah. And then when she comes back, you basically find out that she was the one who you have that kind of revelation that basically she slept with Stephen, which is kind of disgusting if you think about it, because like Stephen's like her student, but you can see why she did, because he's handsome, but
And it's like her
still.
best, it's like Cutter's best friend.
Yeah, and only that, but like even though Stephen slept with, like, you kind of think Steve's a bit of a prick for not telling them all these years. He's like, you knew all this time, you didn't tell me. Like, I mean, I agree with Ollie. I mean, it would have been nice if like Cutter just punched Stephen in the face, because I mean, if you think about it, Stephen is a bit of an arsehole sometimes. The fact that he's so sarcastic, and the fact he's had a affair with
You never
Helen
know.
all these years.
You never
Yeah.
know, he might punch him
Yeah,
next season.
yeah, but I mean, I don't spoil anything. Like,
I never said he did. I said you never know.
Yeah, but anyway, as for the episode itself, like, when you have that revelation, like, you really feel bad for Nick, because I mean, this is his wife. I mean, even though she's like been away for all this time, you're just thinking like, this is like really nasty. Like, you feel bad for Nick, and you just think Helen, she's just such a cunt. I mean, sorry to use that words, but I mean, I couldn't help it. She's a bitch. I mean, on that scene where like when Stephen comes up to him and said, you know what? He's like, Helen, I forgot how much of a bitch you could be.
Oh, Jack's getting told off for saying the naughty, naughty word.
I'm here. No, I'm here. And it was like, I forgot how much of a bitch you were. And then it's just like, you have the ending. And he's like, okay, and she goes back through the anomaly, and it closes. And he's like, okay, so where's Claudia? It's like, don't know who you're talking about. He's like, come on, where is she? And it's like, I don't know who you're talking about. And then he like grabs Lester. He's like, where is she? And it's like, oh shit. I mean, it's kind of interesting, the end of the series on a cliffhanger. Like, you haven't really had that. I mean, you don't really see that in most series, but they end this on a cliffhanger. And yeah, and as for this episode, I think it's really good. I mean, I think it's a great finale. The way they tie up the way they tied it all up from episode 1 to this, I think it's great. I think you really see how much of a bitch Helen is, and and I just think the creature is awesome. This creature from the future, it's a nice change, and probably going to give this episode maybe a 10 out of 10. Yeah.
Mm.
Should I say my thoughts?
Yeah. You took the words
Okay.
right out of my mouth.
Sorry?
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Well, that's not all I'll be taking out of your mouth, Stephen. Ah! This episode is a fantastic season finale. I love it. I mean, I remember watching this, and the next time trailer, you didn't know what the creature was. You just saw the feet of the predator, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be a cool like dinosaur or something. And I remember like you don't really see the predator in this story. properly. You just see glimpses of it, and like you hear it, and you see its legs, and you see like the back of it, but you never really get like a full close up, if that makes sense, until like halfway through when Cutter shoots it in the greenhouse, which is a great scene. But yeah, this is the introduction of the future predator, which is it's kind of like the Dalek of Primeval. Would you agree with that, Ollie?
Yeah, I would guess so. In the sense that it does appear quite.
It's probably the most like iconic creature.
It's the most frequent one that they've used in the 5 series.
I think it's because it's like they have become so like unique to the show. I really like the design. Like it's a future.
So would Helen be Missy?
Oh God.
Actually, no. Helen would be the most fearsome creature in the show.
Yeah, she's the sexual predator. They're the future predators. She's the sexual one. But no, I really like the design of the future predator. It's like when it's like we're fighting a creature from the future, and you're just like, oh, that adds a whole new aspect to the show because it kind of like opens up more possibilities. It's like it keeps the show fresh and like gives it more. I think because of that, you could do more episodes. Like it kind of gave the show a new lease of life because now not only do they fight creatures from the past, they fight creatures from the future. So it's kind of cool. I always anticipate the future episodes because it's really cool seeing what creatures they can come up with in design. I don't know about you, Ollie, but I always like those episodes.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's cool to like see what happens to the human race. And like Helen speculates the predators actually destroy the human race, they wipe out mankind. But yeah, Helen is a complete bitch in this episode. Like you see the reveal of the affair, and it's just kind of like, oh, I remember watching that as a kid and just being like, shit, like, oh, get on Jeremy Kyle.
That make Helen a cougar.
Yeah. Well, apparently, like I was reading into the other day, and apparently, Steven's supposed to be the same age as them.
Really, but he's a student of hers.
Apparently, he's an older student, like like you get students who are like 40 and stuff.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't have knowledge, so I guess I can see why he probably failed school.
Well, as Helen says, you're not the most intelligent, but you're the most sexual. But
Does she say that? I don't remember her saying that.
She says you're not that intelligent in this episode.
Yeah, but not the most sexual though.
No, she doesn't say that.
No.
Louie was joking.
Yeah, but and the anomaly in the Forest of Dean reopens. I mean, just thinking about it now, it would have been pretty cool if you had Benn from episode 1 appear. Kind of like, I don't know, there's a cameo or something, but that's just a little nitpick. I mean, I really like this episode, just the general premise, like the lion goes missing at the zoo. It kind of builds on the fact this creature's pretty dangerous if it can take out a lion. There's a really nice scene where you see it with the elephants and it kills Abby's boss, and you see it with like the sea lions and it like Steven distracts it. And I mean, like Jack said, I remember when this episode aired, my mum was like, it reminds me of Predator from the Predator films, and it kind of looks a tiny bit similar to the Alien from Alien. So it's kind of like a combination of the two. But yeah, I love the future Predator design, and I mean, you have these scenes with Claudia throughout the episode where she's daydreaming, and then there's a bit where she kind of sees herself as an anomaly. And I've seen a lot of fan speculation that is like foreshadowing, like what's going to happen to her, like she's erased from time.
Yeah, because she starts to see the anomaly kind of flicker. Nobody else sees it.
It's kind of like her premonition kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like what's about to happen to her, which is really cool. Actually, I kind of like them. Like I like the scene with the Gorgonopsid 2 in the office, the home office, because you're kind of like, what the fuck? And I kind of disagree with Jack. Like, I don't find it cringy when it happens again. Like when she wakes up and then it happens again, because it's kind of like you feel when she wakes up and you're kind of lured into a full sense of safety. Like, oh, it was just a dream, and then the music's all nice, and it goes sinister for a second, and you get a jump scare, and you're like, oh, like you're like, what the fuck? But the whole thing with the future predator babies being left behind in the Permian causes this, and it's really sorry.
Oh, just wah.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like when they're like, "What do we like? Kill them? We kill them all." It's like the first time we see Cutter like wanting to kill the creatures. He's like, these are too dangerous. If they get into the Permian, we don't know what they could change, big or small. And it's like, and then the Gorgonopsid kills them, and Helen tells Cutter they're all dead. Don't know if she does it on purpose, like they're not, or she genuinely thinks they're all dead. But we see 2 of them are alive, and that causes Claudia Brown to not be a human being. She doesn't exist in this new world. And it's kind of like, the thing I like about this episode is the symmetry. Like when as Cutter goes into the anomaly, he's winning this argument with Helen. Like Claudia kisses him, he's kind of over her. Like he's not going to go with Helen. Like Helen's lost. And then when he comes back through, Helen exposes the affair of Stephen, which is a massive blow to Cutter, his best friend and his wife. And then she not only does Helen leave again, Claudia Brown no longer exists. So it's like he went in like coming out tops and come out losing. He's got nothing now, and it's really sad. But like you said, I think it's probably the best performances from all the characters here. I mean, Lester's got a few great lines, like when Helen's telling them the future predator, and he's just like, I'm really regretting not staying in civil service or something stupid like that. It's just like he has some great lines where he's like, can't we just bomb them? Is bombing it out of the question? He's great, Lester, in this. So yeah, 10 out of 10. And I mean, it leaves you on a cliffhanger. I mean, Ollie will know every series of Primeval, maybe not series 4, but kind of every series leaves you on a cliffhanger, which is quite annoying when they don't make a series 6. But
Yeah.
even New World ends on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
But yeah, 10 out of 10, fantastic. I mean, it really sets up series 2.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Louie. So episode 6, the finale. Yeah, I really like this.
More like episode 6.
Well, yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, episode 6, I really like it. I think it's a great finale. I don't think it's perfect, but it is very good. I don't know if I could give it a 10 out of 10. It's close.
I just think you only give one episode of series 1 a 10.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, but I really like it. It's
Dolly's a hater.
Oh god. No, I mean, what was I saying? I've lost track of what I was saying. I like the future predators. They're really cool, and for their first appearance, it's pretty interesting. And I think the creators did a great job coming up with them. And they're probably the best CGI creatures of the show, in my humble opinion. And I think it's pretty epic when they nearly kill Abby and Steven down in the aquarium place. Yeah, whatever it's called. And then when Cutter shoots the glass of the greenhouse on the male one, that's pretty intense. But I do feel that this is more about the characters. Funny enough, I just think it's not as epic as it could be. Like, it is epic, but like I don't know. It's just a nitpick to me. But I do like everything that happens with the characters, particularly Claudia, obviously, as this is her final episode. Like Nick finally letting go of Helen and realizing that, yeah, she is a bitch, and he chooses the right woman in the end. And Abby and Connor are good in this story, but they don't get as much to do, which is okay, I guess, because they've had a lot of focus. So yeah, but there's a nice scene. There's quite a good scene when Connor is trapped in the car, and then Abby tries to save him, and then Steven comes and shoots the future predator. So that was nice. I like that. And yeah, when they hug at the end, he's like, "Oh, you saved my life, thank you." She's like, "It's all right," So they're starting to really sort of get closer, which I really like. And this is a very much Helen-centric episode, and Juliette Aubrey probably gives one of her best performances as Helen of the entire show, of the entire episodes that she's in. Of course, she's not in much of Series 3, but she's in Series 2 as well. Yeah, and Lester's great too. It's nice to have him back, having some great lines. I mean, Captain Ryan's death was quite brutal. When he realizes he was
Lots of blood.
yeah, exactly. And when he realizes he was the soldier that died in the first episode, so the whole idea of the paradox was really clever. I thought that was really interesting, and it sort of brought the series round together in a circle. It kind of came full circle, which I really liked. I think Lucy Brown does a great job as Claudia in this episode, and seeing her kind of, she's having these sort of, she's almost undergoing kind of a schizophrenia, like her nightmares and stuff about the Gorgonopsid attacking her, and then she's seeing the anomaly, kind of seeing herself as the anomaly, and then seeing the final anomaly flicker, and nobody else sees it, and then she's just gone. She's just been erased from existence. That was a very interesting cliffhanger to end the series on, and it got me excited for series 2, which we have to wait a year for, but it was still worth it.
By the way, sorry to interrupt. Were you guys, when you first watched this, were you surprised it ended on a cliffhanger for series 1?
I was kind of like, oh, I didn't really know what to expect.
Yeah, I was a little bit like, oh, what the fuck? Oh, that's a bit strange. But I thought, oh, this is great. It really, that's interesting. It got me excited to see series 2. So yeah, it was a bit of a surprise, but yeah, and obviously there's the whole stuff about Helen revealing the affair with Stephen, which is all right. It's proper like EastEnders soap drama, but it works, you know. When she's like, when Stephen, you weren't there, and Stephen, he was just so helpful, and Cutter's face, he's like, oh, it was just the one time. Like, Stephen's face never changes throughout this series. He has the same blank face. It just really pisses me off. But
Abby and Connor are great in that scene as well. I think that's when Abby kind of realizes, like, fuck you to Stephen. Like,
realizes, oh yeah, I shouldn't have fancied Stephen. But yeah,
Ollie, you know the way you said it was a bit like a soap opera, like EastEnders. Could you imagine if like Nick saying like, Helen, don't you touch me, don't you ever touch me?
Yeah.
I am Nick Carr.
Yeah. So that was a good scene. It was a very interesting scene. I mean, it would have been nice to see a bit more of a confrontation. Cutter just kind of stands there and kind of just takes in the shock. I think to make it more dramatic, I guess to have him go for Stephen might have been interesting, but you know, he may or may not do that in series 2. But yeah, so that was a
Wednesday, wouldn't it? Bit of a awkward moment.
Yeah, Lester's got some good lines there, and I like the kiss scene between Cutter and Claudia in this one. You know, she's like, stuff it. I realize I love this guy, and you know, he's kind of finally accepted that he does really like Claudia, and he doesn't love Helen anymore. So, yeah, that was really nice. And when they played the Cretaceous Sea track as well, that was really cool. That was nice. I appreciated that, and you know, it was their final moment together as well, because obviously Claudia is gone. She's just erased from time now, so erased from existence. Only Cutter and Helen actually remember her. So it's yeah, that was nice. It was also kind of sad to see that she'd gone. But yeah, it was a very intense episode. I do think maybe they could have made it maybe just an incy bit more epic, but that's just a minor nitpick. You know what? I think there's enough in here for me to probably bump my rating up. I'm going to rate it a 10 out of 10. It is fantastic. I mean, it's not as emotionally hard hitting as it could be, but they do make more of that in series 2 when Cutter is trying to get over Claudia's, well, the fact that Claudia's gone and nobody believes him, that, you know, etc. So that kind of picks up in series 2. But you know, I'm going to bump my rating up to a 10 out of 10. I think it's a fantastic finale, and there's some great character moments here, and the creature is awesome, and it's epic enough, you know, and it's a great conclusion to the series. The way it ties in with the paradox, it's probably one of the best written episodes of the series. So
something I forgot to say is a scene when I rewatched it last night that I found so cringy and awkward to watch was when Connor and Abby are just having a bit of banter, and he's like, "You can fancy a mate though, can't you?" It's like, "There's mates you can fancy." I was like, "Oh, don't say that. It's just so cringy." Because she's like, "We're just mates," and he's like, yeah, but you can fancy your mates. So, oh,
And I thought it was quite funny though when he's
it's
like, "Oh,
funny,
I've
but it's
seen
just
you here
cringy.
before."
He's like, barman.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was funny. So yeah, well that pretty much concludes this. Just before we
Sorry, before we wrap up, I was going to say, how did they get Rex back in episode 6 after they? No, sorry, in episode. Yeah, at the end of the series after they lost him in like episode 4 or 5 or whatever it
they
was.
found him in the forest in episode 5.
All right, yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we go, we'll just sort of give a brief summary of the series overall and our ranking of the episodes. So, Jack, what do you think? Seeing as you're a first-time viewer, what did you think of the series overall, and how do you rank the 6 episodes in personal preference?
Get all of them 0 out of 10. No, joking. No, I'm only joking. No, I think overall, series 1 of Primeval, I think it's really good. I think it's a really good first series for any show. I think all the episodes here are pretty strong, apart from episode 2. And as the first series, I'm really interested to see what series 2 is going to be like, because I hear in Louie that it's your favorite series. So I'm sort of I'm not going to get my hopes up too high, just in case I'm going to be disappointed. I don't think I will though, but hopefully series 2 will be as good, if not better, than series 1. But as series 1 as a whole, I think it's a pretty good series. I mean, I think episode 1 is a great introduction. Episode 2 is a bit filler. Episode 3 was great. Episode 4, my favorite. And then episode 5 was good as well. And this finale was great with that cliffhanger. So overall, I think series 1's a pretty great series. As how I'd rank them, I would say at the bottom would be episode 2, just because it's a bit boring in places, but it's not bad. It's good, but it's just a bit average. I put episode 2 at the bottom. Then maybe episode 5. I still like episode 5, but it's just not my favorite in the series. Then episode then maybe episode what was 1, 2, so halfway through the series, I guess I would put 3, 4, 6, episode 3 maybe. No, yeah, hold on. I put episode 2, then episode 5, then episode 3, 4, and 6. So.
And 1.
Yeah, and 1. Yeah. I forgot 1. So yeah, maybe episode 1 at number 4, then episode 3, then episode 6, and then episode 4 at the top. And yeah, that's how I'd rank them. Does anyone want to go else? Anyone else want to go next?
Louis?
Oh, I hate fucking ranking these shit. No, I'm joking. Series 1 is a great introduction. It used to be my favorite series until series 2 came along. I remember just watching series 1 over and over and over and over and over again.
Well, it was the only series until series 2.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, like, series 1 was just it holds a special place in my heart. And I know a few of my friends, like Dick Land, he really likes series 1. He thinks it's his favorite. My brother actually thinks series 1 is his favorite as well. I don't know if it's just because it's like the introduction to the characters and the nostalgia, but I don't know. Great creatures, great settings. Not as epic as series 2 and 3 in terms of scale and stunts and stuff, but just more character pieces, I think. And I love them. Like, every single episode is great. In terms of ranking, I'd say episode 2. Then maybe episode. Oh, I hate ranking stupid things because I like all of them after episode 2, like the same, really. So yeah, check out my ranking video because I can't remember what I did.
Oh, okay.
Possibly you look.
Well, okay. Louis ditched the ranking, so
Screw it, and spit it and tread it in the ground.
if it comes back to you, let me know. But As for how I'd rank them, well, obviously episode 5 is at the bottom, but I still like it. Then probably episode 1, again, still good. Then I would say episode 2, then 3, then 6, then 4. That'd be my list. But I like all of the episodes. I think as a series, it's very strong, and it's a great introduction with great characters, fascinating creatures, and CGI. It feels like, I mean, I think the scale of it would only improve in series 2.
It's interesting that both of our top 2 are the same.
Yeah. I think the scale of the show are going to improve. I think the budget would get bigger, and they start to sort of take more risks. But as an introduction, this is pretty strong, and I like that it's only 6 episodes. It doesn't have to be any more. I think it works for this, and the cliffhanger ending really works well. And it's very well written. It's a great story, and it all comes around together. But the story will continue with series 2, and I hope you like it, Jack. I'm sure you will. I personally think series 2 is better as well, but I'll leave you to make your own judgments on series 2.
I mean, series 2, episode 2, the pre-title sequence is the best of anything.
It's really quite something.
I bet you can't wait to get to series 4 and 5, Ollie, and reflect on those.
Yeah, we look forward to that. So overall, the series, like series 1, out of 10, how would you rate the series?
But me, I would give it 10. I
10.
think fantastic. I mean, maybe I'm being a bit too kind, but it just means a lot to me, and I couldn't possibly, like, if it's every single episode is watchable. One episode's a bit meh, but as a kid, I loved that episode. So I think it's a really good family show. You've got the monsters for the kids, like the creatures. You've got the characters for the adults, and just the overall mystery. Like, I love this series. 10 out of 10.
What about you, Jack?
Fucking minus a million out of 10. Absolute crap. No, joking. I'm gonna give it a 10. No, I'd give it I'd probably agree with Louie, maybe a 10 out of 10. I mean, apart from episode 2, which was a bit meh, the rest of it is really good, and it's a really great series to start and show off on.
Were you surprised by it?
Yeah, actually, I thought going into it that it's just either going to be okay or not very good, but I was surprised it was actually that good.
A lot of people were actually surprised that it was that good when it aired, like, because the trailers didn't really.
The trailers were so dull.
Yeah,
it's like,
oh, dinosaurs. I'm like, oh, okay, what is this? And I watched it. I was like, oh, okay, this is actually very good.
The series 2 trailer, though, that was epic, with the Pretenders by the Foo Fighters on. Oh, that was great. They got better with their trailers.
Any trailers for series of Primeval that you saw that you thought were great, and then it turned out the series was shit?
Well, I don't remember many of the trailers. The only trailer I remember was series 3. I mean, the series ended up being good.
Series 3 trailer is probably one of the best. Like, it's just so epic.
I mean, the trailer was epic. It was really good. But
it sold the series quite well.
Yeah, I mean, the series, it ended up being good, but it wasn't like, oh. It was like, oh, okay. It was a bit underwhelming, but again, I'll leave you, Jack, to make your own judgments. So I don't want to ruin anything for you. So you just need to watch it. Although series 3 is the longest. It's 10. Well, of the UK shows, it's 10 episodes. So yeah,
I bet you're gonna hate the series 5 reflection.
Well, it will be a bit of a chore to get through, but we'll be all right.
No, Philip, no.
So yeah, that pretty much wraps up this reflection on Primeval Series 1. So
we will see you through the anomaly for Series 2 reflection.
Yes, we will. Thank you to my guests, Louie and Jack. And until then, I'm Mr. Thomas 11. This is Louie and Jack. See ya.